Thank you all for coming this evening. We will now call our meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Klopstad? Here. Pardon me. Vice Mayor Pallavi?
Here.
Mayor Romack?
Here.
Councilmember Zabriskie?
Here.
And Councilmember Henderson? Here. Thank you.
We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us. Thank you all very much. Before we move on to our next item this evening, which is public comment, I did just want to take a pause in our meeting. This past few weeks, we have all seen the news, we have read the stories, and thousands of innocent people have lost their lives across the globe, in the Middle East, in Europe, and other places. So I thought it would be appropriate for us this evening to take a moment of silence and reflection at the beginning of this meeting. Thank you very much. Now with that, we will move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to make a comment on any item not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to make a public comment, you are welcome to come up to our podium. You will have 3 minutes, and please state your name. Would anyone like to make a public comment this evening? Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Heidi Meyerhofer, and I am the representative for Senator Marie Alvarado Gil, the state senator for District 4. And I just came to introduce myself to you. I'm going to be available. I have been available. This is my second month here. And I want to continue to be available with, I think, bi-monthly, as it's going to turn out, visits to the Truckee region, to be available for constituent conversations, but also to be available with leaders, town officials, Supervisor Bullock, and to be engaged with the community. Senator is very much committed to being a presence throughout her district. Her district runs from Truckee all the way down to the tip of Inyo County. It's a 400-mile, as the crow flies, span, but she is committed to the entire district and wanting to be present and available. So constituents, if you have concerns or issues or ideas or solutions, our office is more than willing to listen and take note and see how we might be of service. I'll be doing it in the Tahoe City area also. So I just wanted to introduce myself to you tonight and to thank you for creating space for this to happen.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment on any item not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we will close public comment. And with that, we'll move on to our presentations. And since we have quite a few presentations this evening, and I'm guessing some will generate some questions, comments from council and the public, we're going to break things up a little bit differently this evening. We are going to do our first 2 proclamations, then take a moment if anyone has any questions or comments from council or the public. After that, we will then go to our Emmanuel Jones and Associates legislative update. After that, again, take an opportunity for questions, comments from both the public and council. And then after that, we will move on to our 3 staff presentations and town manager report and take questions on comments after the 4 of those. So just want to make sure everyone in the room is on the same page. So you know you have ample opportunities to make comments if you so choose. So with that, we will move to our proclamations and more explanation from me. Our first proclamation this evening is Extra Mile Day proclamation. And this is a proclamation we do here at the town every single year. It recognizes the efforts from our volunteers and organizations in our community. And we have numerous organizations and volunteers in our community that we recognize through this proclamation. And here to represent all those folks tonight is Sierra Senior Services. And the reason, one of the reasons we invited them tonight is because they literally go extra miles every weekday to deliver meals to our seniors through the local Meals on Wheels organization. So with that, Sharon and volunteers, if you'd like to join me at the podium. And a special guest.
And a special guest.
Let's see, and if you all maybe kind of want to line up that way or behind or.
We all want to show off our individual shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. How are you? Whereas the town of Truckee is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas the Truckee community has consistently volunteered tens of thousands of hours annually to help seniors, honor veterans, build trails, educate women, educate youth, feed our hungry, clean waterways, clean streets, construct safe dwellings, construct parks, and countless other efforts, small and large. And whereas Truckee is a community which recognizes the efforts of its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, families, friends, and communities. And whereas Truckee is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Truckee acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to celebrate 550 Extra Mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2023. Now, therefore, the mayor of the town of Truckee does hereby proclaim November 1st, 2023 to be Extra Mile Day and urges each individual in the community to take the time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own personal life, but to also acknowledge all of those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, or world a better place. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, on behalf of all the volunteers in Truckee, we're delighted that we can represent a lot of extra milers right here. We got probably 3,000 miles represented right here. We do cover a lot of area to make sure that our seniors get fed, and we're very happy to do that. However, I do know for a fact a lot of these people volunteer at other organizations or have volunteered at other organizations. So it's not just the purple shirts that we're celebrating today, but all of the Truckee volunteers. And we thank you, Town Council and Mayor Romack. And there is a future volunteer here with me, so also the mayor's son. All right, ready? Thank you.
All right, and our next presentation, I believe we have via Zoom, so I'm going to go back up to the dais to read this one. All right, this way I can see you on screen better. And with us this evening, we have David West, Nevada County Veterans Services Officer, and this is in honor of Veterans Day. Whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining our freedoms and way of life, and whereas tens of millions of Americans have served in the armed forces of the United States during the past century, and whereas it is estimated that 10% of our region's residents are veterans, and whereas the town of Truckee will come together on November 11th, 2023 at 11 a.m. at the Eagle Monument in Victory Plaza to recognize and celebrate our local veterans. And whereas our veterans are brave and selfless individuals who, when called to duty, willingly put themselves in harm's way to defend the lives and liberty of others. And whereas the town of Truckee would also like to recognize the sacrifice of the families of veterans and active duty personnel. And whereas our veterans understand the important task before the American service men and women now keeping watch. And now therefore be it proclaimed by the mayor of the town of Truckee, November 11th, 2023, as Veterans Day in the town of Truckee, and encourages Truckee residents to acknowledge and honor the contributions of our veterans to the principles of democracy, individual freedom, and human rights. And David, I would give this proclamation to you, and we will get it to you, but feel free if you would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. And the members, thank you very much, Mayor, for inviting me to be here this evening, and all the members of the town council. I often tell everybody that I have the best job in Nevada County. I get to work with and for my friends every day, making sure that we get the benefits that we are entitled to, that we served by our service. This proclamation is just further drives home the commitment that not only the town of Truckee, but not only Nevada County, but the town of Truckee has for serving as veterans. My office has been trying to do a lot of work to make sure the veterans in Truckee are being routinely reached, whether it's be providing outreach there the first and third Friday of every month at the local American Legion, or to us just now setting up a brand new email. It's called Veterans of Truckee at nevadacountygov. Any veteran in Truckee can use that email address to contact our office or service provider, and it goes to every member of our staff with a red flag that lets us know that this is an important email from one of our veterans in Eastern Nevada County who needs to be talked to. So I will be up there on Veterans Day, celebrating Veterans Day with the town of Truckee, me and my family. I look forward to meeting you in person, Mayor, and Councilmember Henderson. I know that you are named an honorary commander of Beale Air Force Base. Thank you for your commitment to our armed forces, and thank you everybody for inviting me to be here this evening.
Thank you very much, David, and we look forward to having you in town on November 11th. So with that, I will take an opportunity if any members of council have any questions or comments on our proclamations. Councilmember Henderson?
I just want to say congratulations to all of our recipients of the proclamations. And if we could just get that email one more time for our veterans.
Yes, ma'am. It is Veterans of Nevada County at nevadacountyca.gov.
Thank you.
Thank you. With no further questions or comments, I would open it up to the public if any members of the public wanted to make any comments on the proclamations. Seeing none, we'll close public comment for those two items. Thank you all very much. So with that, we will move on to our next presentation this evening. And this is from Emmanuel Jones and Associates, and they have our legislative update this evening. And I believe actually, Hillary, maybe are you going to do any introduction first?
Sure, I'd love to briefly introduce our two speakers this evening. We have Kira Ross and David Jones with Emmanuel Jones and Associates, who are our Sacramento-based legislative advocacy firm that's been partnering with the town, I think, since incorporation for quite a while.
And if you could hit the mic, make sure it's green.
There we go, green.
There we go.
David Jones, Manuel's Jones and Associates. I'm going to turn it over to my illustrious colleague, Kira, who's going to give the bulk of the presentation, but delighted to be here. Had great meetings today with council members and staff. Have meetings tomorrow, and you have a very talented staff, and we're delighted to work with you and continue to work with you. With that, Kira.
Good evening again, Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. Kira Ross with Emmanuel Jones. It's so great to be back in Truckee. As David noted, we had some great meetings today. We're going to continue into tomorrow. We wanted to give you an update from Sacramento about this last legislative year, and as well as sort of what we think is coming in 2024. It's going to be a busy year. June of this year, the governor signed the 2023-2024 state budget, $310 billion. The state had a $30 billion deficit, and the good news this year was that there was no redirection or cuts to core services for local government. There was $1.1 billion in additional housing and homelessness funds, with a commitment for an additional $1 billion coming this next year. There was funding for public transportation, about $5.1 billion, and a commitment over 4 years. That does include things like active transportation, and this is also for transit services. So that's going to be very important going forward. And there was something called the Infrastructure Permitting Reform Package, and this was a 10-bill package that included, for very large infrastructure projects, so highways, some of the big water projects, things like that, included things like design, build, and CEQA, and trying to work through to get through some of the red tape on some of these projects and get them moving, making sure that they are following environmental guidelines in the process. The administration is already working on the budget for next year, and I will just also note there was also funding for Truckee. We are very excited to get the funding for the Reimagine Bridge Street project. I'm very thankful to the legislators in Sacramento for helping us get there. The administration is already working on the budget for next year. It's a very busy month. This month, we thought we were going to get all the tax returns on October 5th, October 16th. On that day, of course, as you probably heard, along with everyone else, the IRS and the state FTB gave an additional month extension. So the returns are coming in a little bit slower than what was anticipated, and we'll kind of get some news probably towards the end of November, early December. Coming in, just to give you a sense, LAO was projecting easily a $10 billion deficit going into next year based on last year's budget. We're looking to see how those returns come in going into next year. So if we had a $10 billion deficit, putting it in perspective, it's a $300 billion budget. They have $40 billion in reserves. It's a manageable deficit. It's something they're going to do. So we don't anticipate at this point major cuts to core services and things like that. But we'll know a lot more as we get into January and the governor introduces his budget on January 10th. Last month, we finished up the first year of the 2-year legislative session. The governor finished signing and vetoing bills on the 13th. He was a day early. Just from by the numbers, 2,636 bills were introduced this year. Of those, 1,046 went to the governor. Of those, 890 were signed, 156 were vetoed, to a veto rate of about 14%, very consistent with what governors do, very consistent with what we've seen. Just interestingly, a couple of takeaways that we have seen and sort of have noted. The governor is moving to be more of a centrist. He vetoed several major progressive bills, including a bill that would have provided uninsurance benefits for striking workers after 2 weeks. Another bill that would have required human safety people to be in an autonomous truck, semi-automatic truck, or semi-truck, not automatic truck, autonomous semi-trucks. And it shows his likely move, as we've been kind of seeing in the media, that he's going to the national stage at some point. And so this centrist move sort of aligns with that. Second takeaway, he doesn't like spending outside of the budget process. That's something we've known for a long time. It's something we've seen vetoes on for a number of years. But in 64 of 156 bills that were vetoed, he specifically noted he didn't want to see spending outside of the budget. So that's a takeaway that's important. He also has become more moderate on criminal justice bills this last year, and he wants housing. He wants it everywhere. He signed virtually every housing bill that got to his desk this year, and that's an important part of the housing legislation, and we'll talk about in just a moment. The legislature is now in an interim recess. They come back on January 3rd. And so we'll talk a little bit about housing legislation this year. A couple of the big sort of categories. Expanded by right and ministerial approval for multifamily housing was a big area. There were 2 important changes to ADU law that we'll talk about, new focus on adaptive reuse, and a couple of bills on the Surplus Land Act. Here we go. On the major bills on multifamily, SB 4 by Mr. Wiener, this is a bill that provides by right housing affordable housing on independent institution of higher education or religious institutions. So there have been churches and other institutions that have wanted to do this. So this is going to go forward. SB 423, this was the really big one this year that a lot of folks talked about in terms of housing. This bill, let me just get to my notes because there's a couple of things on it. Streamline housing, it modifies and expands SB 35 provisions that allow certain multifamily housing developments to take advantage of a streamlined ministerial approval process. It extends the current law surrounding SB 35 from 2026 to 2036 and does two other things, allows the state to approve housing developments on property they own or lease, which is a new area. And the other one that's very new for us is that for the first time, they reached into the fire hazard areas. So they did this both in coastal and in areas that have fire issues. And they've said, so long as people are abiding by the local rules that are established for housing in fire-prone areas, you can build in those areas. They still do not allow housing to be built if you're within a high fire severity zone. But for the first time, we're kind of talking about moving into some of these areas. So that's something we'll continue to pay a lot of attention to as discussions go further on housing in the future. The town opposed the bill, but it was signed by the governor, and it will go into effect on January 1st. The other one, just of note in this area, is SB 684 by Caballero. And this is a bill that streamlines the approval of multifamily projects in urban or urbanized areas up to 10 units. This really captures those areas, those smaller developments that weren't caught under some of the major housing bills over the last couple of years. They're kind of tying up some loose ends. So these are smaller, up to 10 units, similar streamline ability to do that. These have to be lots under 5 acres, they have to be zoned multifamily, and they have to meet some specific criteria. 2 bills on ADUs, just worth noting. Under existing law, there is an existing prohibition on owner occupancy requirements. AB 976 makes that permanent. So cities and towns in California cannot prohibit owner occupancy for ADUs. Also, AB 1033, this allows somebody that has an ADU on their property to sell it as if it's a condominium in the same sense. So you could own the main property, you could own the land, you could sell off the actual ADU building. So it sets up a kind of a new process. It comes out of San Francisco. It's being done in some other states. And so they wanted to have this as an option. We'll see how it works in the future. And then AB 1287 is a density bonus bill. It says that if a developer agrees to go further than the existing maximum for number of units for very low or moderate income units, then they can get additional density bonus concessions, incentives, and bonuses. A couple more. There was a trend that we saw this year that we've seen in past years, but there were multiple bills on it, and they ended up really only one bill that moved forward, but on adaptive reuse. And a couple of the bills came out of San Francisco, where they've really been pushing to convert office buildings into housing. AB 1490 was the one that finally got through, and this makes 100% affordable housing projects that adaptively reuse existing residential buildings and allowable use. The idea is if there are buildings that are empty that aren't being used, let's turn them into housing. Let's figure out how to get there. And then there were a couple of bills on Surplus Land Act expanding and a lot of clarification in terms of how to use that area. And then a very important one for us was SB 440. This is a bill that ultimately did not go forward, but it is a 2-year bill, and we will continue to work on it this next year. It's one that the town supported this year. It allows 2 entities to form a regional housing finance authority that would allow the finance authority to bond and then ultimately build and construct affordable housing. One of the very important components of that bill, it deals with AMI. It allows the AMI, it allows the authority under the housing that they're going to build to have the qualifying AMI up to 150%, which in this community is going to be a big deal if we can get that. Outside of this, we're working separately, just as a side note, on AMI as an issue to try to see what we can do at the state level. It gets a little complex when you add in federal dollars and some of the federal, we connect to federal dollars in some of the state grant programs. But we're trying to work with other similar communities and HCD to see if we can't get a way to have a set aside AMI within a county where you have a lower AMI, but you need a higher AMI for qualifying for affordable housing in some of the more tourist and higher income areas. 2 other bills I just think are worth noting that did not go forward in the housing arena. One was AB 309, and this was social housing. The big reason was the price tag. This would allow the state to do 3 pilot major social housing, similar to public housing and in that sort of frame. The price tag was about $300 million to do 3 projects in the state. They set it aside this year. And then SB 584, that was one that we were watching very closely, would have created a new 15% TOT on short-term rentals that earned over $100,000 per year. That money would have gone into a fund at the state and then used for, called the Labor Force Housing Fund, that would have been available for communities to use to do housing and refurbishing of existing housing, new affordable housing. The bill was set aside. The big concern for us was all of a sudden a new TOT, and a 15% TOT would have been a big deal. And how would that have fit in with our existing TOTs, and what would that look like, as well as what it would have meant for the market for short-term rentals when you have some that are subject to this 15% and some that are not. The bill was set aside. It's a 2-year bill, so we'll see if it comes back this next year. A couple of bills that you took positions on, just wanted to update you what happened. AB 573 was a bill on organic waste. It allows the jurisdiction until 2031 to use California-derived organic waste that is sent out of state. This is a bill that we were very big supporters of. We worked with a number of communities. It was on consent all the way through the legislature and got stopped at the end. So we're hoping to bring it back this next year, and we'll continue working on the issue. I want to note, this is an HR bill, AB 1484, with temporary employees. It requires temporary and seasonal employees to be included in the bargaining unit of the permanent employees in the community. This was a big issue for us as it applies to snow removal, which are seasonal employees. It would require that if there were a bargaining unit, that they would be included. One of the pieces to know about this bill is that the bargaining unit has to ask for this to happen. And so this will be across California. This will be a big bill for local government. SB 244, the Right to Repair Act, was signed by the governor and will go into law. It requires manufacturers to make available service documents, tools, and parts to consumers to repair their own electronic and devices. It applies only to devices that cost the manufacturer over, I think it's $500. So it's really looking at washing machines, dryers, things like that, that people want an opportunity to try to repair on their own before they have to call in a repairman. And then we talked about SB 440 already. The legislature returns on January 3rd. We have the 2-year bill deadline in January. Bills that did not get out of their House of Origin will be taken up in January. We'll have another round of introductions in February. We usually get another 1,500 or so bills. So we'll have another round to look at. The governor will release his budget right about January 10th, and we'll have a good sense of what's coming because of that. Excuse me, a couple of other major issues coming up in 2024. We've got 2 really big ballots. We've got one in March that will include Proposition 1, which is the the mental health initiative by the governor. It's 2 parts. It includes a $6.4 billion general obligation bond that is going to fund up to about 11,000 hospital or mental health beds in California. The second part is amending Prop 63, which was the millionaire tax from a couple of years ago, carves out about a third of that very specifically for mental health treatment and behavioral health treatment for chronically homeless. So that'll be on the March ballot. We've also got about 5 bond measures that are floating in the legislature still to be decided on. They include resources bond, probably a $10 to $12 billion bond, water parks, all the typical climate will be in that. We've also got a $10 billion housing bond that's sitting out there that may be voted on, may go forward, and education is back looking, education proponents are back looking for an education bond for schools. So all of that is out there. The November ballot today has 11 measures that have already qualified. One is going to come off because of the fast food deal that will allow fast food workers that will go to $20 minimum wage in April of 2024 if you have 60 or more franchises nationwide, so the in-and-outs, those groups. That will pull one of the measures off. There are still 10. We think 4 or 5 more will get on there. We're talking about 15-ish measures on the November ballot next year, so it's going to be a really, really busy ballot. In addition to that, we think we'll see additional bills. Labor will be back with bills. We think housing, climate, and then one last note on the insurance, because I think there's going to be a pretty significant discussion in Sacramento on insurance, and very specifically wildfire insurance. Some of you may know there was an agreement reached in September in Sacramento between the insurance commissioner and insurance companies, very specifically on wildfire insurance. Very briefly and generally, it would allow the agreement is that insurance companies would need to take on a larger share of insurance customers in wildfire-prone areas, including people on the FAIR plan today. In exchange, they will be able to look at catastrophic modeling. The Department of Insurance is currently looking at this. They need to have the rules in place for this by December of 2024. I was just on calls about 2 weeks ago. They're looking at what catastrophic modeling might look like. How would that work? What would that mean for rates? But it's an active discussion. There are legislators and folks in Sacramento who don't think this is going to be fast enough. So I anticipate that we'll have some pretty significant discussions in the early part of the year on wildfire insurance. With that, that's a lot of information. So I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that and all the work you guys are both doing for us. We will start, Councilmember Zabriskie, any questions?
No questions. Thank you very much, Kira.
You're welcome.
Over here, Vice Mayor Pallavi. Go for it.
Thank you for that. Always super comprehensive. Just two quick ones for me. The short-term rental bill that is now on hold. What is that looking like? Where did that one really sort of come from, and where is that being pushed in areas without transit occupancy taxes, or is that a disconnect between sort of some of the legislators who proposed that bill and some of the communities who already have transit occupancy taxes? Because it seems to be quite at odds. It seems like it's a grab, obviously, and it's an easy target. We like to target STRs too, right. But it seems challenging, and they're almost in opposition of each other.
That bill is really an interesting bill. It's SB 584 by Senator Lamone. The sponsors of the bill are labor unions, and it came out of the discussions around SB 423 and the part of 423, there was a fight over what the labor standards should be in housing going forward. And it was a fight between the building trades and some of the big labor unions that want what's called skilled and trained, which are labor union members that have gone through the actual apprenticeship program, and prevailing wage. And there was a discussion about funding for housing. And so this was their answer to that. And so it came out of that discussion, and labor unions said, okay, we think we're going to go after TOT. We think we're going to raise all this money, and then we'll put it into a grant program that can go back to the communities. And these would have to be skilled and trained members that are building these houses, and would have to be all labor that are using the money to build. The challenge on all of it was that it created all sorts of additional issues. The TOT was not set up well. It was a very frustrating bill to work on, because I don't know that they understood exactly how that works, and there was question about what would it mean if you had say if you had 3 or 4 short-term rentals on a street and 2 of them were subject to the TOT and 2 of them were not. You've got a whole new kind of competition. The other concern, frankly, we had is that for communities like Truckee, if you have a number of short-term rentals in your community and you'd raise the TOT, we wanted to make sure that money would come back to Truckee. And the bill didn't necessarily do that. And so that was a major concern, because part of it was like, okay, it's one thing if you raise the money and it's coming back directly to the community, but it wasn't necessarily going to come back to the community. So it stalled out for the year. I do think, I don't know if it'll come back next year. We have to wait and see what the labor unions want to do. But it is something that we're on the watch. It's high on our list to watch for.
Yeah, thank you. That was what I was going to ask. I know we as a community, we did not chime in on that one.
Yeah.
I think where we would have come, but being the representative also to our visit Truckee Tahoe tourism organization, that was something that was quite high on our radar. And I think we would just appreciate a big heads up on that, especially because we do have some great connections with some of the labor leaders in the state through other entities like Sierra Business Council and some other groups like that. So depending on what angle is appropriate, I think that's an important one that we should, at least I would oppose. I can't speak for the rest of my council members here as that moves forward, and keeping a sharp eye on that one. My only other question was on the FAIR plan on the insurance stuff. Obviously another huge issue up here. I think, 90%, we're at like 90% non-renewal up here. We're almost all on the FAIR plan. As soon as your insurance is coming up, you're being forced to FAIR plan. And I guess just a little bit more detail as to how that is that going to be a market-based solution that the insurance commissioner and the insurance companies are coming up with? Or I didn't quite understand where you were going with that, or how that's going to work out. Maybe they don't either. No, maybe
I think
not.
they're still trying to determine it. It's an agreement between, right now, it's an agreement between the state insurance commissioner and the insurance companies. So the insurance companies have to agree to come back. They have to agree to take on higher number of people in wildfire-prone areas, and very specifically, a higher number on the FAIR plan. That comes out, a part of the concern has been that the FAIR plan, if we continue to go where we're going, we're going to run that into the ground. The flip side is that the insurance companies, as part of their rates, get to look at, or they get to eventually do catastrophic modeling, so they could build in catastrophic costs to the rates. My initial understanding, although I will caveat this with they're still looking at this at the very high level, is that it would initially send the rates up, but over the long term it stabilizes rates because they've got a better look at the catastrophic nature of wildfire and what their losses long term potentially would be. So it's intentionally trying to balance over the long term. What I can't tell you today is exactly what that looks like or exactly what that means for the consumer. On the consumer side, how much would the rates go up? What would it look like? What would it look like long term? What are all the other components to it? The initial calls that I've been on to try to understand this is that the department is trying to understand what exactly is catastrophic modeling. It's used in other states. I know it's used in Florida. I don't know that it's been used for wildfire. I think it's been typically used for floods and hurricanes and other things. And so they're trying to understand what that would look like and what would that look like in terms of rates and use by the insurance industry.
I guess my only comment on that would also be, luckily we have our legislators representative here too, and making sure that there is local sensitivity to communities that are doing as much as they can, that are investing dollars into their wildfire safety plans, into their emergency activation plans, all of the work that's happening at the local regional level. Is basically feeding into that model.
Yeah.
We've seen models where sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, and I think it's important to make sure that sensitivity exists, and to definitely figure something out on this front. So I'm sure it's a really tough, challenging task, and I don't envy those people. But thank you for keeping our attention on that one.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klofstad.
Okay, I don't want to put you on the spot with almost 3,000 bills, but the one SB 48 by Senator Becker was building energy savings. Do you know if that progressed?
I want to see if I have it in my notes.
Okay, and while you're looking...
And if not, we will certainly get back to you.
Okay, that's fine. And while you're looking at your notes, there was another one, and I can't find it here. It was about the state providing or accumulating greenhouse gas inventories, and I understand that did not progress.
That one did not. However, there were two really big environmental bills that did. There's an Allen bill. Gosh, I can get you the numbers. It's 252 maybe and 260 that require large corporations. One was over. I'm trying to remember if I have it on my notes. I don't know if I do. Yeah, one was $1 billion in revenue, are going to have to report out GHG emissions from their supply chain as well as from their overall manufacturing process, and one was $500 million.
Oh, supply chain as well.
Yeah, so that was the really big set of climate bills. Interestingly, it's something that the Biden administration is looking at and the SEC has been looking at as well. So we're kind of cutting edge and setting the stage for that. And this is a big deal for major corporations, that they're going to have to start reporting out these emissions and really looking at greenhouse gas issues as they go forward. So those were the two big climate ones, but the one that you mentioned, I know did not move forward this year.
Okay, and those two other ones are now 2-year bills, so they'll be reintroduced?
No, those are signed into law.
Oh, those are signed.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, great. And then who gets the question on the AMI?
I'll take it.
Okay, great. As you alluded to in your presentation, we really struggle with that here. I know we are not the only community that does.
Yeah.
There seems to be some logic that could prevail and have some sort of if this then that when we have AMIs that are askew and really actually exacerbate our housing situation. So is there any consideration of that?
There certainly is. We're in conversations both with HCD. I'm in conversations with both through the rural counties, but also lobbyists that represent both cities and rural counties and towns. We're trying to understand exactly what the realm of funding, and where it gets complicated is when you get federal funding involved. And a lot of the state grants are derived from federal funding, and so that's where it gets complicated. So we're trying to understand, can we do some kind of a carve out? Is it a city boundary or town boundary? Is it a census tract? What does it look like? How would we do that? And how do we move forward and make sure that we are still able to take in some state dollars, maybe state dollars that are not attached to federal dollars, and also doing sort of regional level, which is why the language in 440 is really critical, because that's language from regional money that will be bonded that is separate and apart from federal dollars. So there's efforts on a couple of different fronts to see what we can do and see if we can figure out a way to do this, but you're certainly not alone. There are a number of communities that are facing the similar situation, so we're trying to band all together and see if we can't get a answer on it.
Yeah, or at least some compartmentalizing of those funds in some way. I know we do that in the construction side because the Buy American and American Steel requirements on federal grants sometimes make the projects not pencil for us. So then you decide, okay, we'll just take this little section here.
Right, and that's part of it, it's figuring out. And the other piece that I was on a call today about on the way up here was, how does it affect, say, tax credits? How do we make sure that we can still, developers can go after that, but if it has federal funding attached to that tax credit, do we get back in the, so we're just trying to work through some of these questions and figure out how to write the language in a way that we think we can make it successful.
Thank you so much for your efforts and understanding all those complexities. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Henderson.
I don't have any further questions. Just wanted to say thank you. I always appreciate these updates. And I had missed the one on allowing cities and counties to have ADUs conveyed separately from the primary residence. So that's an interesting one. We'll have to see how that plays out. But so as always, thank you for the update.
Yeah, and just so that you know, my understanding is the example that was given to me outside of the condominium, that it would be similar to how you would work with a condominium, was if you had, say, a family compound. So you had like a main house and each individual person owned their individual house, but not quite sure how it's going to work if it's a landowner that owns the main house and they sell off the individual ADU. So we'll see how that works in practice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do not have any further questions, and really appreciate all the work that you are doing for us. And at this time, I would open this presentation up to public comment. If anyone has any public comments, you are welcome to come up to the podium, and you have 3 minutes. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, may I add one thing on this item?
Of course.
I would like to take a minute to share with our council and members of the public where you can find our legislative platform and legislative position letters that we've submitted on our website. I'll pull that up. So from our main page, if you hover over government and then go over to the left to town council and click on the heading of town council, of lovely photos of our council members and council priorities, and then scroll down all the way to the bottom. In the bottom here, we have a link to the 2023 legislative platform, and then we have a separate link to view legislative correspondence letters. And we update that whenever we submit official letters for any legislation. That's all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing that with the community. All right, thank you. Now we will move on to our staff presentation section of the presentations. And first up, Erica Merton's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion presentation.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It turns out green means you're on. Green means go. Alrighty. Okay, so tonight I'm going to give you a recap of what the first year of our diversity, equity, and inclusion program has looked like. And to the council members who were at Good Morning Truckee, I'm sorry for the next 20 minutes. All right, so these should look familiar to you folks. These are, of course, the 2023 through 2025 council adopted strategic work areas. And one of those areas that you identified as a priority was to enhance communication and public outreach to facilitate community cohesion. So spawning from that was the birth of our community engagement division, which is comprised of Braun Roberts, our public information officer, and myself. So for those who are less familiar, what is DEI exactly? You've heard this acronym thrown around, but the diversity can look like many things, be it differences in race, socioeconomic status, disabled folks, LGBTQ plus, and so forth. Equity, of course, is ensuring that all people have access to services and information, as well as the opportunity for civic engagement. So on the left, there is an illustration from the Interaction Institute for Social Change. And it depicts equality on the left-hand side and equity on the right. And you'll see with equality, everyone is receiving the exact same thing. But there are still some folks that can't see over that fence and are not having the same opportunity to see what's going on. On the right-hand side, you can see the people who need more help are getting an extra boost. And that's kind of what we're taking that approach in terms of looking at things through an equity status. So really making sure we're reaching all of Truckee community, including our historically underrepresented and underserved populations. And then inclusion, again, is just creating a culture where all people belong and everyone can thrive here in Truckee. So I'm going to give you a handful of examples of what this looks like in Truckee and how DEI is actually being applied. One of the projects that I helped provide some outreach on was the automated license plate readers. So that was brought to you from the police department earlier this year. And I won't go too in depth, but basically the project we recognized was going to have some sensitivities, especially amongst those in the Latinx community pertaining to kind of trust, historic trust issues with law enforcement, and varied immigration status. So I worked with closely with the police department as well as Sear Community House and the Promotores, which is the peer Latinx group of leaders. And we kind of came up with this plan to have Chief Renfro, who was a good sport, he presented at a Promotores meeting along with one of our Spanish-speaking officers who was his interpreter. And that was a really powerful and meaningful conversation for those folks, as well as I think for Chief Renfro. And by having it in a neutral space, in a safe space, people were able to have open dialogue in a way that may not have occurred without kind of creating that opportunity. So on the right-hand side of all of my slides, you will see an equity and inclusion spotlight, if you will, to really break down how is this an equity and inclusion practice. And so again, as I said before, we chose this venue, this Promotores meeting, as a safe space amongst Latinx community leaders. And we also delivered the message in their preferred language, in their native language in Spanish. Another project that I worked on with Braun Roberts was our community communications survey. So this we did earlier this spring to really understand what information people care about in Truckee and how they wanted to obtain that information. So we received around 1,400 survey responses, and we were really pleased because the responses did span all age groups as well as every neighborhood in Truckee, meaning we had responses from residents in both single-family, main single-family neighborhoods, as well as multifamily complexes and mobile home parks. From this, we had a 10% Hispanic Latinx response rate, which, while is not representative of the Hispanic population in Truckee, it is a much higher response and participation rate than we have previously garnered. And a lot of that is credit to the extra kind of outreach efforts that occurred. I think we've got many special guests tonight in council. It's very sweet. We held many community events to conduct outreach outside of our normal spaces. We had an event at Coldstream Commons, the apartment complex in their community room, did an event at Kids Zone, and the Truckee Library. And we kind of piloted many different modalities to incentivize participation, including gift cards and other participation kind of gift cards, as well as a raffle, So one of the things here that's an equity and inclusion practice is really making the focus to meet people where they're at and go to the people instead of asking them to come to us. And this included holding events in neutral spaces. I also helped Lynn Baumgartner in some of the housing workshop outreach, and similar to what we did with the police department, we did a presentation at a Promotores meeting, which again is a gathering of around 40 to 50 people who are all leaders, peer leaders within the Latinx community. But actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we did that, Lynn and I, with the housing consultants, really took stock of what information was available in Spanish, and what was not. And so before we even held that presentation, we had all of the program materials as well as the website translated into Spanish, and made sure that if someone were to reach out to the consultants, that they actually would have a Spanish speaker available to provide that assistance. So just making sure that from start to finish, people could receive that help that they needed. Again, the equity practice here is making sure that information is accessible in their in the needed language and is relevant to the audience's needs. From the Promotores meeting, and as well as the Spanish-only Truckee Home Access Program workshop that were held, what we found is folks were more interested in some of the rental assistance and other housing programs rather than the purchasing of homes. So having those conversations really help us to better cater information to people's actual needs. Kind of changing gears a little bit, the Trout Creek interpretive signage that went in on the new Trout Creek Bridge by the roundabout had a lot of interesting interpretive information, and I helped facilitate a conversation thanks to our engineering department or division between the engineers and a Washoe tribe to include culturally and historically relevant information. This is a inclusion practice to raise awareness of the Indigenous people who have lived here since time immemorial, and helps to kind of shift that historical vantage point that we often see starting from the time of kind of logging here in Truckee. Alfred Knott is here. So Alfred can probably speak to things if I've misrepresented them, but this information came from him directly. So this really celebrates the efforts of the transportation programs in town, but the overall ridership increased by 7% on the TART fixed line, and that occurred in the area's nearest multifamily and mobile home parks between the years of 2021 and 2022. This really credits the work of good planning as well as transportation planning. I also helped Alfred in doing a lot of TART Connect outreach as we expanded the pilot program to a year-round program and expanded the hours. Materials were dispersed at every mobile home park in Truckee, as well as the apartment complexes. Again, some of that information was put out there through some of the events that I talked about earlier, but really making an effort to, again, provide information directly to folks. So this being an inclusion practice, equity and inclusion practice is providing information directly to multifamily complexes and not just to residents in single-family homes. This, as we know, there is a connection between low-income residents and who live either in mobile home complexes or multifamily complexes. So this is really providing information to those folks who are often hard to reach. This here is a heat map of the TART Connect ridership, and you can kind of see I've located where Coldstream Commons and Donner Creek Mobile Home Park are located, and high ridership there, as well as Hennis Flats, Coachland, Truckee Artist Lofts, and Sierra Village. So what we can ascertain from this is just the correlation between our, again, non-single family residents and those utilizing these modes of transportation via TART Connect, and also, as mentioned previously, the TART fixed routes. So in the last year, we have done a tremendous amount of community engagement, kind of trying to think outside of the box and go outside of our traditional outreach methods. We held 7 in-person events. I'll talk about those on the next slide. But one of them in particular was the inaugural Dia del Niño, which we held at the Truckee Library in conjunction with Sierra Community House. And we had 200 attendees. Mayor Romack and special guest Finn were there in attendance. And I would say it was a really fun cultural event, but also one where it provided us real opportunities to have meaningful conversation with folks in authentic and organic ways that we might not otherwise have. So also you can see I honed in on my other duties as assigned with my face painting skills, and I'm pretty proud of the Mexican flag. That was a lot of pressure at the Mexican Heritage Festival. But honestly, that does provide, again, just the opportunity to have like real person-to-person conversations with parents as you're painting their small canvas of their child's face. And a couple of weeks ago, we held a community pool night, which was at the rec pool and in conjunction with several other community partners. And again, this just provides us the opportunity to meet people where they're at, have conversations that are casual, but provide them with information about things like our housing programs, or I spoke to several Spanish-speaking families about Code Red, our emergency notification alerts. So those are conversations that we might not otherwise be having if we weren't going outside of our normal town hall space and moving these events outside. So I've estimated 750 people that we've reached through these targeted events, not including all of the other kind of traditional outreach things that we've done at things like Truckee Thursdays. But this is the list of some of the focused outreach that we did. And some of the other groups that I haven't touched on, of course, was the Golden Hour brunch at the rec center. So that is really targeting our senior population and working to get that messaging out again to more populations than just those that we have traditionally been in contact with. We also held free pizza night at Coldstream Commons in their community room, and are working to plan more events at other multifamily complexes throughout the year. We've also worked to put messaging out with Sierra Community House in their food distribution bags, that as well as some of the Meals on Wheels. So those alone are going out to over 300 residents in Truckee, many of which are low-income residents as they're on those food assistance programs. Just on a regional scale, I've been convening a regional DEI collaborative with several community partners. And this started out as a kind of casual conversation and really grew organically. So we are meeting about quarterly at this point, and peer sharing information about our prospective DEI initiatives. Okay, so what's coming next? We are at the brink of starting our DEI action plan process. So this will likely be the next 10 to 12 months. And we've just hired a consultant to help us through this process. It will be kind of a three-part approach. The first part being an environmental justice assessment. That came from a direct result of the adoption of the Truckee 2040 general plan. And with that, it will really look deeper than the traditional kind of data sources. So what we know is that Truckee, from the conventional sense, as the Cal EPA determines, we are not flagged as a disadvantaged community. But we know that on the ground level, much like Anna spoke to earlier, that the reality looks different than how the data portrays. And that's kind of due to various factors from our census tract information and the kind of reliability of the last census as well. So our consultants will be looking at quantitative as well as qualitative data, and that will include many community interviews and kind of on the ground data gathering. The second part is going to be an organizational overview. And what that will do is really look at Truckee's practices. So looking at documents like our hiring practices, our procurement practices, who are we contracting with, and so forth. And then the third part is the actual drafting of the DEI action plan. So both the environmental justice assessment as well as our organizational assessment will inform policies and programs to be put in place through an implementable action plan. And so similar to the kind of the process that we went under to adopt our climate action plan, we will have at the end a DEI action plan with detailed programs to actually put in place, as well as metrics to hold us accountable to track our progress. And then lastly, another project initiative that's ongoing right now is the development of a youth council. I see many of our council members smiling. I think that shows how passionate you are about this. And I'm really excited to get this off the ground. We've had some exciting conversations thus far with the school district. And just earlier today, I was at a different collaborative meeting with folks from SOS Outreach as well as Adventure Risk Challenge, or ARC. And so I think we have some really promising prospects to develop a meaningful youth council here in Truckee, and the goal of which to involve students and our youth to empower them to utilize their voice in local government. It is a glamorous world that we live in. And that's what I've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erica. Appreciate that. And again, we're going to go through all of our staff presentations and come back for questions on any of them. So if anyone has comments or questions, write them down so you don't forget them. Up next, we have Jen to do our dark skies presentation. Should we turn off the lights for this one?
Well, the theme is don't be afraid of the dark. So perhaps we should. I just want to, while I'm pulling this up, thank Erica and Braun and actually, all of the town staff. This is really something we've been putting in the forefront of how to reach all members of our community. And a lot of the first year about building relationships and making connections in the community. So great job to Erica on moving that forward. So now, Dark Skies. This is really an awareness campaign. This came out of conversations we had at our council retreat in January, where before we talk about visiting our current development code section that speaks to the night skies, we wanted to get some information out there to the community, remind everybody of what night skies are all about and why it's important to preserve our night skies and comply with compliant lighting. So, did you know this is another piece of our Truckee 2040 general plan? In the community character element, there is a goal about preserving and protecting views of the night sky as it relates to not just only the beauty and the visual effects, but also the natural and scenic resources. There's 5 policy, 3 action items, and this is really addressing policy 2.1, which is about education and reminding people about night sky preservation. So what is Dark Skies? Dark Sky Movement works to restore the nighttime environment and protects communities and wildlife, and light pollution is human-made. So that's really what we're talking about is light that we're putting out when we turn on our interior lights and our exterior lights. Why does it matter? There's a number of reasons why night skies are important. Our artificial light disrupts our ecosystems. It affects our birds and predators and insects. We want to keep our natural beauty. There's human health impacts to additional artificial light, and with respect to sleeping and general human health. Excessive lighting is wasteful. There's a lot of wasted energy with lighting, a lot of carbon dioxide emissions. We're really trying to help reduce that throughout our community and region. And what can we do? We're encouraging people to turn off our exterior lights by 10 p.m. Those include holiday lighting. Turn off your interior lights when you're not using them. Select the dark sky friendly exterior lighting, so that's pointing down and not up, or multi-directional and it's shielded. Use motion sensors if you are concerned about safety, and spread the word. It's okay to politely ask your neighbors to follow these guidelines. And then, did you know we do have a development code section that speaks to exterior lighting and night skies? We have some general standards within that section that speak to minimizing overlighting, energy waste, glare, light trespass, and sky glow. Non-essential exterior, commercial, recreational, or residential lighting should be turned off after business hours or when not in use. and exterior lighting shall be considerate of neighbors and community. There's a lot more in the development code. I just pulled out these sections, but you can check it out online. And that's 18.30.60, or you can call us if you have any questions, and we're happy to answer any of those. So we are encouraging you all to join the Dark Sky movement. In order to do that, we're hoping people will take some time and interact with our night sky and our night environment. So we are sponsoring, in partnership with Tahoe Adventure Company, a full moon hike. It's normally $95. We're asking people to pay $5 to go towards gratuity, and we'll pick up the cost for the rest of the hike. It's limited to 32 people, so sign up quick if you're interested. But the hike is appropriate for anybody 8 years or older. It's a fairly easy hike up Donner Summit. The guides will give some information about local nature, human history, and astronomy, fun facts. And it happens to be the full Hunter moon when we're doing this, so you should be able to see that rise above Donner Lake when you're on the hikes. So how do you sign up? Again, first come, first serve. So sign up quickly if you're interested. They are this Friday and Saturday, the 27th and 28th, from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We can accommodate 16 people each night, and we do have a Spanish translation available, a Spanish-speaking guide. So open to all members of our community. And how do you book? It's not the easiest link to follow, but go to Tahoe Adventure Company website and you can follow the Our Trips, custom tours, and full moon. And you can pick your date, number of people in your party, and use the promotional code DarkSkies23. And that should get you set up to join the adventure. So learn more at darkskies.org. And quick reminders, daylight savings time ends Sunday the 5th, so don't forget to turn back your clocks. That gives you an extra hour to go outside and see our night sky and enjoy the stars. It's getting darker earlier, so that's why we're launching right now. Is a great time to get on the movement for dark skies. Reminder that light pollution is dangerous not only for ourselves, human impacts, but our natural ecosystems and our wildlife. So please turn off your lights. And I'm going to end by showing you a quick video that is on our social media. So please share it if you'd like. Just a quick visual reminder for everybody. So again, please feel free to share that. Encourage everybody to get on the Dark Skies movement. And the great thing about this awareness campaign is the beauty of the night sky speaks for itself. So just encourage people to get outside and look up. And with that, I'll pass it on to Becky and Drew for our next presentation.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you for the cool stickers, too. Don't be afraid of the dark. So yes, up next we have presentation 5.6, Open Space and Biological Resource Mapping presentation, and Drew and Becky will be presenting.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm just going to give a brief introduction on this item and then hand it over to Drew. So yeah, we're talking about the biological and water resource mapping. It's a presentation of what has been done to date. Notice the 2040 general plan in action badge on the right-hand side there. So as you all will probably remember, there was a fair amount of discussion about the need for mapping of biological and water resources. Really, the purpose of that is to make it use as a tool to help inform decisions about development, land use, open space preservation. And so there are actually a few goals and policies in the general plan that relate to this topic, and specifically some action items I won't read these. We can go back to them if there's questions after the presentations are done tonight. But just so you know, there are three in specifically that I pulled out here that relate to the open space, mapping for open space, management and protection of sensitive biological resources, and then list and map of special status species in Truckee. And then there's also in our work plan, there's a task 4.7, that we would provide this mapping and take a look at what's available. Drew, not only is he a GIS whiz, but he also has a lot of knowledge about this subject area. So I can't think of anybody else that would be better to present it all to you. And I do just want to point out, he's going to go through sort of what's sort of currently available. This is using existing data sets that he's all pulled together. And I just want to point out that all this information is available to town staff to draw from. He's made it pretty easy for us all to get to. Even I can figure it out. And so with that, I'll pass it on to Drew.
All right, thanks, Becky. So this is, a roll of the dice. This is live technology, not slideshow. So see if it works. Sure it will because of the great IT infrastructure, right, Chris? So this, there we go. So our GIS environment is 3 servers. It's on premise. It's behind a firewall. So these data sets are staff eyes only for the most part, but most of these data sets are publicly available elsewhere. So just to set the stage, everyone in town, because we're on an enterprise license, has access. You tell me, I give you a username and password, and you can log in and see all these data sets. So let's see if it works. Okay, so I'm actually going to go back. This is our staff map. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, but this is the primary map that our staff would use to find parcel history information, land use data, zoning. It's kind of the go-to for engineering and planning. I am going to go back just real quickly to the home screen. So when you log in, typically you get to a home screen and it has a bunch of kind of mapping applications right off the bat. These are kind of the most used applications. So there's some census data maps, there's climate and economic justice maps. A lot of these are used for grant applications. So those are heavy hitters. And then, of course, the staff map. We also have what I call the resource map application, and it includes our staff map. But it also pulls in a lot of data sets from the state. Let's see. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the bullet points in the general plan that we can kind of view through the staff map. So I'm going to look at the 2040 land use designations. I'm going to look at some of the open space layers, some wildlife and fisheries data, which is kind of what I like to look at, and water stuff. So I'm going to start real quickly by showing you that what a planner could see if they're looking for information on a particular project. And this is, again, live data. So there is some sensitive data in here. So I'm only going to click on town parcels, just so you know. So I'm going to start off just real quickly. Here's our public service center. You can see, just the pop-up of who owns it, APN, that kind of thing. We also have, at the bottom of that pop-up, our internal records search. So if I wanted to find, a environmental report for that parcel, it would likely be held in our parcel or our building records folder. So it's really easy to just click on that button. It goes right to the folder in our Laserfiche repository. You can find any of the documents associated with that parcel. So it's pretty slick in that way. You can get to information quickly, and hopefully you can find what you need. Some of the other overlays we have, there's a wetland inventory. We can quickly look at that. It tells you what type of wetland it is, what it's designated at. Same thing. It has pop-ups, when it was determined a wetland, by whom, and the date. We have things like subdivision maps that are all linked. One of the coolest things that I like is this historic resource inventory. So, a lot of these, in the past, we've had to go find the documents, just like subdivision maps. Now everything's kind of loaded in this map. I'm going to turn off parcels just in case I accidentally click on something. And, I can click on a parcel that has an inventory, scroll down and get that document right from the map, which is really slick. So you're not hunting around for things. So that's super cool. The general plan land use 2040 is loaded, so it automatically comes into the map. You can add transparency, see actually what it is, get a view. The other big thing, one of the big advantages of having this housed internally on our servers is we can put giant data sets. So our imagery from 2021, when we had a flyover, is here. And it's really high quality imagery that takes a little while to render. But it's great because and we have previous years, so we have a 2016 and 2011, so that allows us to kind of compare what's been going on in our town, the development. So those are some of the basic things on our staff map, but all of these layers can be portable. In other words, we can create here's a fish and wildlife map. So we can bring over parcels, we can overlay land use on top of these, but we can then also bring in this instance, it's a mule deer migration. So this is I believe it's the Verdi mule deer migration data set. And you can see in this data set, winter range, migration stopovers, high use corridors. So it's pretty cool. It really informs, I think planning, because you're overlaying it on parcels and on your 2040 general plan land use. It's just a phenomenal resource. So those exist for a lot of the sensitive wildlife species. A lot of the sensitive plants are, it's hard to map those because people want to go find them. And so the state has kind of this archaic way of showing what exists. And it just gives you really a quad map and tells you these species are found here. So they're not geolocated, so people don't trample over them, which makes it difficult for mapping for internal staff as well. But through those parcel record searches, any environmental reports that were done on those parcels should pop up. But the mapping of those sensitive species just hasn't happened. Here's just a kind of a layer list of all the sensitive species that I pulled out from that state list. So you can see different ranges. There's well, these are pretty general. One of the things that I also really liked in this is wildlife movement barriers. So there's some great data sets from the state that you can bring into these and overlay on our data sets. And I think, barrier priorities is really important. Invasive plant locations, they don't care about invasive plants, just our sensitive native plants. So that's pretty cool. They've mapped larger populations of probably like musk thistle and Russian knapweed, that kind of thing. So I'm going to keep moving a little bit quicker now. We have a vegetation map. So these are kind of broken up between water, vegetation, and fish and wildlife. Here's a vegetation map. I'll just pull down the layer list, but it's pretty extensive. We have everything from our active mines, that layer. We have fire perimeters, land ownership. Again, here's a kind of one of those bullet points from the general plan was easements and open spaces. So you can turn those on, find out kind of where are those open spaces or those recorded easements, and click around, see what they are. So all of that, again, overlaid onto our parcels. We also have things like, which this is a really cool one. Can't do a whole lot with it, but I love it. It's the geologic map of California, but it's really colorful. It makes for a great map. Moving along, we have water resources, and this is one of those. I guess it's a passion of mine. It has a lot of stormwater implications, but a lot of these data sets are at a really high resolution. They don't offer a lot of great value when you start zooming in, but these include wetlands, USGS stations, even groundwater monitoring wells. So those wells that participate in CASGEM, you can click on them and really get some information directly from our maps. But all of these are from authoritative data sources. So they're all streaming from the state, which means they're as up to date as possible all the time. I think that's a real benefit of this setup. This has been really quick. There's tons of data sets on here. I just wanted to put in a plug for November 15th. We're having a GIS Day open house in the Prosser Room. So if you want to explore these data sets with me more, please come in on the 15th and do that. Yeah.
So,
Thank
Drew,
you.
Sorry, Mayor. Can I ask you to show anybody watching at home or in the audience how to access these again?
So these are all internal. We do have an outward-facing portal, and a lot of our data you can actually download on that portal. But this is a staff only because it has, if I accidentally clicked on a parcel, I would get owner name, mailing address, all of that stuff. So 99% of the data sets are publicly available, and they can go through our data portal, which is, you can get to it through the town website. But what I just showed you was internal only. And hopefully we make a move to have more of an external page so that you can click on a parcel within the map and get records. Right now, the way our records are set up, you get more than what you should be getting. So we can't do that, I guess. Kind of a weird way to say it, but we're getting there. So this is the GIS page. You can click on the data portal and go and grab data sets. So we have trails, roadways, planning data sets. Those are all available. And then you can go to the outward-facing town of Truckee map, and you get some of those data sets that I just showed.
Great, thank you. And really tonight we were wanting to give you a presentation of the information that's available and out there. And then when we come back with our work plan, understand what you would like as a result of the action items in the general plan. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what is currently available. So if we're doing additional work, we're either augmenting that or we're understanding what you would like to receive out of that additional work.
Thank you very much. All right, and then we have one more presentation, our town manager report. Jen, did you have any additional items? And then we'll come back for questions or comments on any of our staff presentations.
Yes, our goal tonight is to overload you all with information, apparently. So a lot of good information tonight. Thank you for your patience with that, and hopefully you learned a lot, and the community members watching and here in the room learned some new things. A number of activities in town going on in the next couple of weeks that if you want to have something to do, you have some options. We have the Halloween parade happening this Friday in partnership with the Rec District and Historic Downtown Truckee. Starts at 6 p.m. Looking forward to seeing what Muggs will be wearing this year and what his costume will be, as well as all of our community members and youth in our community. And as we just talked about, again, you can participate in one of our full moon hikes on Friday or Saturday night. 4:30 to 7:30, and sign up on Tahoe Adventure Company's website. On the 28th, we have a free prescription medication take back event. That's happening at the Gateway Plaza in front of Safeway Shopping Center at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this is really important to help us keep those unwanted or unneeded medications out of our water supply. And then on November 2nd, we have our CTA Climate Transformation Alliance community event, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Truckee Community Arts Center. And that's a way for community members to see what the CTA members have been doing, get to know what CTA is, and what's happening in your community and region around climate transformation. And then lastly, on November 6th, we have our 8th annual Fix-It Clinic sponsored by KTG and the Truckee Roundhouse. So 4 to 7 p.m. if you have some items that could use some love and you want some expertise in helping fix them, come out to the Roundhouse on the 6th and we will help you do that. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all the great information this evening. So with that, to council first for questions or comments, Councilmember Klopstad on any of our staff presentations.
No, I don't think so. It was fabulous information, and I'm going to go poke around in GIS. I've just started learning it at the Tahoe City PUD. It's a fabulous tool, and feel like I really see the vision of where this could go. So I'm very excited about it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pallavi? Councilmember Zabriskie?
Erica, can I ask you a question? It's a compound question.
That's a bit daunting as she comes up to the...
It has many parts. I wanted to ask you about what you foresee being covered in the environmental justice assessment. And I guess I'm thinking about categorizing people that we want to make sure are included in our community in the broadest sense. Looking at seniors, you mentioned seniors. Do you envision this right now as looking at low-income seniors, or is there any qualifying term to seniors?
That's a good question. I think that we'll know more as we delve in with our consultants and lean into their expertise in this field. But I would think that when we look at seniors, we might be looking holistically. Oftentimes, seniors are on a fixed income and may need greater assistance.
Okay. Tied in with that is another potential category is helping people who need disabled accommodation, which is going to include a higher percentage of seniors, I would expect, from my personal expectation. Is that what the same answer on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then low-income residents, you're going to try and define that group and see how we include them and in what way. Is that correct?
Right.
And then our homeless residents, would they be considered too, at least initially?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then those with mental health problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And then I have questions for Becky and Drew. Thank you, Erica.
Sure. I think you answered your own questions mostly.
Thank you. They were all leading questions, I realize.
And I would say go ahead and start asking because I think they can hear while they sit down.
There's, Becky, you mentioned the conservation open space elements 1C and 3A. There's also 3F. Did you mean to include that, or is that on a separate track? And 3F's one about listing and mapping special status species by 2025.
I think I went through the slide very quickly, but I think it was this one.
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. And then on the, Drew, why were you saying some of the data on private property was sensitive?
Oh, so a lot of the way the law is written with parcel data, We can give that data out when requested, but we're not allowed to make it publicly available.
Okay, thank you.
So on a map. So that's why it's sensitive. Also, when you click on the parcels, you get building records, and some of those pieces in the building records,
Okay.
architectural plans and stuff, are proprietary and not available.
Okay, thank you. And then in talking about special status species, did you get let me phrase it this way. The general plan had a much smaller number of special status species listed. It had a real low number, 14 of plants and 12 of animals, something like that. Then the EIR had 42 plants that identified as special status and 37 animals. Which did you use the EIR list or the list that the EIR used?
I would imagine it was, I don't know, but I imagine it was the list that EIR used. So CDFW has a sensitive plants inventory, and those include sensitive plants, also threatened. So there's like a couple of classifications. And I believe, so we have kind of 3 quads in town, and I know there's overlap, but I think the main quad, primary quad in Truckee listed 17 species. Then there was, I think, 22 towards the summit, so a couple more getting into amphibians. And then the Glenshire quad had a little less, maybe 11. So, yeah.
And we haven't quite gotten yet to how we're going to define habitats, what the list of different habitats is going to be, or how we're going to rank the quality of different habitats or that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the state also has, the generic range of different species. They also have likelihood of presence. So that's another data set that takes habitat into consideration. So is the habitat intact? How large of a habitat or intact area does that species need to exist? So there are those layers that help us. The state has already.
Okay. And then are we planning to do ground truthing at some point, going out and actually doing on the ground or in the water surveys to confirm or
I think
attempt to find out?
Yeah, I'll take that one. That's part of the direction we'd be looking for from you in the November work plan update.
Okay, thank you. And with that, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Henderson.
I don't have any questions, but can I just provide some reflections or comments? I just want to say thank you for all of the presentations tonight. I am so thrilled with the work that is happening within the town. It was less than a year and a half ago when we first started really talking about having a DEI position. We've never had that in Truckee before. And all of the work that Erica and Braun and everyone here has really embraced to bring this to fruition. And I know I've been talking about a youth council and you've been hearing it for a long time, and that we're actually at that place with you in this position for a year, not even. I mean, it's really, really impressive. And I think it really, it truly demonstrates we're trying to do so much more community outreach and education and just make us, more of an inclusive community where everyone is, truly feels valued and can participate in our local government. So I wanted to thank you for that. Similarly for dark skies, I know you said we talked about it at the last retreat, but I think it's at the last 3. And so I also want to thank my fellow council members for support on this one. I guess my one question is, I think our campaign right now is going to run just about a month. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we'll be, good question, having some social out there for about 3 weeks. And then we do have stickers and magnets or some on the back for anybody here in the audience. Please take some, sharing those with any of our partners that want to distribute them out to their followers. And then we will relaunch in April when it is International Dark Sky Week, and are working on a couple of opportunities or exciting things to bring forward during that launch.
Thank you. And I think the timing is just perfect as we transition, with, just change of time and things like that. So thank you for that, and having the foresight to really think about what we're going to do in the spring as well. And then we're already moving on items in the general plan. I mean, that's just, it's incredible. And all of the mapping and the GIS work, and Erica, even the heat map of ridership that you put together, there's just so much that you all are doing. And I hope you're as proud of it as I certainly am. So thank you for all of your work.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Henderson. No questions. I will echo everything Councilmember Henderson said. Erica, your presentation just as great a second time through. And Drew and Becky, I'm looking forward to geeking out on the maps because I love just looking at maps. So you may see me at the open house on November 15th. So thank you to all the staff. With that, we will open it up for public comment. If there are any public comments on any of the 4 staff presentations you just heard from, feel free to come on up. As always, please state your name, and you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. And also, please make sure the button is green.
It's green.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Romack. I appreciate it. And thank you, council members. Wonderful presentations. The DEI presentation is something I know very little about, and so it was great to hear what we're doing. And frankly, it's very positive. A dark sky. It's long been an issue in Truckee, and it's nice to see that it is still an issue, and that we are advancing with regard to ensuring that we can see the night sky and see it well. I'm Richard Anderson, by the way. I'm here for a specific reason. I represent 6 groups who are interested in water-related biological resources. So I just have a couple of comments regarding the presentation on the implementation of the conservation and natural resources element. I'm not sure I got that name right, but the natural resources aspect of the general plan. And just want to say, first of all, thank you very much to Drew and Becky for the work they're doing. This is the sort of thing which is exciting for us. It provides a powerful tool for analysis, for understanding relationships between development, water demand potentially, and impacts on wetlands, impacts on sensitive species, impacts on fisheries, and so on. So we're looking forward to seeing this issue progress, or this action item progress in implementation. And the town manager had indicated that you'll be providing suggestions, advice, whatever, to with regard to how to proceed. And I'm just wondering, how can we get involved in, if we feel that we can make suggestions to you all? How do we do that? What's the timing? What's the process?
Did you have any other comments, Richard, before we answer your questions?
Well, again, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, Jen, do you want to speak to when that's coming back to council?
Yes, so the second meeting in November, which I think is the 28th, we'll be coming back with council, and Richard, you and I can connect and chat a little bit before that, and I can get some feedback from you.
Sounds great. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council.
Thank you very much. And I will also just add, Richard, as you're aware, and any other community members, you can always reach out, email any council members too on any thoughts you have on this as it's coming to council as well.
And we may. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Are there any other public comments on the presentations? Seeing none, we will close public comment and end our presentations for the evening. With that, we will move on to our consent calendar. A few items this evening. I'll read through them quick. We have item 6.1, minutes from the October 10th regular meeting. 6.2, approval of a contract with Spare Labs, Inc. for software as a service, on-demand transit ride booking technology. Item 6.3, authorized purchase of replacement hydraulic pump and motor from SRM Kodiak. Item 6.4, roads acceptance, Donner Crest. 6.5, 2024 Riverview Live Music Special Event Advanced Application Submittal. Item 6.6, Open Arms Challenge Grant. And item 6.7, consulting services for operational and service delivery assessment. Are there any council members that want to pull any items? Seeing none. Any staff member like to pull any items from consent?
No, Mayor.
And I will open it up to the public. Would any members of the public like to pull any items from consent? Seeing none, bring it back up to council.
I'll move that we approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we'll now move on to our first discussion item of the evening, and this is appeal of notice of determination at 15223 Downer Pass Road. And Hillary, I believe you're presenting first.
I am. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let me pull up a presentation here. And I'm also joined here tonight by Rosie Johnson, our program analyst for the short-term rental program, as well as Katie McCartney, who is our short-term rental code compliance officer, who are available if there are any questions for them. Item 7.1 is an appeal hearing from an administrative citation that was issued regarding the town's short-term rental regulations, which is Chapter 5.03 of Truckee's Municipal Code. And I want to acknowledge first that we received one written comment that came in just this evening, just a few minutes before the council meeting began. And that comment is available on the back table in council chambers tonight and will be scanned and posted electronically after the meeting as well. So I'll provide a brief background regarding the citation, and then the appellant, Max Bailey, will have up to 15 minutes to present any additional information to the town council. To start, I'd like to provide a brief overview of a few of the pertinent requirements of the STR ordinance. Municipal code lays out specific operating standards for short-term rentals, which include things like occupancy limits, parking requirements, and life safety requirements, among others. The overarching framework of the ordinance is that each property owner is responsible for compliance with these requirements at their own property. The way that works is that the town contracts with a third-party operated helpline that is available to receive complaints by phone 24/7. Each property owner is required to designate a contact person for their property, and that person must be available 24/7 to provide a timely response to and resolve any complaints that are received. If a complaint is received, the helpline operator calls the designated contact person, and that individual is required to respond by phone within 30 minutes, and the contact person is then required to cause the discontinuance of any violation within 60 minutes of the call. The incident that led to this administrative citation took place on August 12th. A call was received by the STR helpline at 8:58 p.m. with a complaint that the STR tenants at 15223 Donner Pass Road were parked on Donner Pass Road and outside of the STR's permitted parking area, which is on West Street Avenue. Per the ordinance, parking is only allowed within the property's paved driveway or inside the property's garage if it has one. Following this call, the STR helpline operator made 2 attempts to reach the property's designated contact person, Max Bailey, who is also the property owner. On the second call, the operator left a voicemail for Mr. Bailey, and at 9:27, which was within the 30 minutes required by the ordinance, Mr. Bailey returned the call to the STR helpline operator. As laid out on the previous slide, the requirement is that the contact person returns a call within 30 minutes and then takes action to cause the discontinuance of any violation within 60 minutes. The full transcript of the STR helpline call with Mr. Bailey was provided in the staff report. And during the course of that call, Mr. Bailey indicated that it was too late in the evening to investigate or respond to the issue with parking. He also stated, quote, "I'm not doing anything about it, and I'll try to talk to the tenants in the morning to see what they can do to rectify the issue." Upon review of the complaint and call transcripts, our code compliance officer, Katie McCartney, determined that the response constituted a violation of the municipal code because the contact person failed to take timely action to ensure compliance with municipal code within 60 minutes as required by code. Therefore, Mr. Bailey was issued an administrative citation on August 17th. Mr. Bailey appealed that citation to me as the town's tax administrator. Following that appeal hearing, I determined that the helpline call showed that the contact person stated they would not follow up with and resolve the complaint within 60 minutes as required. And no information was provided during that appeal hearing to demonstrate that they had investigated and resolved the issue within 60 minutes. Therefore, I determined that the administrative citation was properly issued in accordance with the requirements of the municipal code. Mr. Bailey then filed a second appeal, which per municipal code is an appeal to town council, which brings us to tonight when council is tasked with determining whether the citation was properly issued in accordance with municipal code. With that, staff's recommendation is that town council conduct a public hearing and make a finding of non-compliance with the municipal code and uphold the notice of determination and judgment amount of $1,000. As an alternative, if council determines that the findings to approve the appeal can be made, council may take action to grant the appeal and overturn the notice of determination. And that's all I have for you this evening. I'm happy to turn it over to Mr. Max Bailey to provide further comments.
Green light.
And Mr. Bailey, we have a timer up here for 15 minutes,
I
so
saw it.
you're welcome to track your time.
Thank you. Where do I begin? I'm going to begin by reading you my prepared statement, and then we'll have some more after that. Hello, council members and others. Thank you for allowing me to address you as to my appeal of the short-term rental department administration citation that was issued, blah, blah, blah. I'm asking you, after hearing what I have to say, that you will agree to overturn the citation. Often I have considered just paying the fine, but my honor and reputation is in question, and I kind of let that happen. You have, I presume, read the information provided by Ms. Hillary Hobbs led to the citation. This is the first time I had gotten a call with the new GovOS system, and at first it was very confusing. I was quite upset at getting such a call, as I know that the initial caller was the same person as made many such crank calls before, and the STR people are aware of that, but choose to discount that fact. That's my prepared statement. Ms. Hillary, I must disagree with you on point. I did afterwards, and I've communicated with Ms. McCarty, that I did talk to the tenant that night. He called me, I think he turned his phone off, and then he called me and said, hey, I understand what you're saying, Max, but at the same time, I'm getting myself confused, forgive me for that. I told him the situation. I asked him about early that morning at 9 o'clock, a neighbor had come down my stairs and told him this vehicle was parked improperly. He and I looked into that and we decided it was not. So the automobile sat there for the whole day, and when the STR call came in, the complaint call, he rechecked the car, he verified it had not been moved, and therefore there's no issue to have a citation based upon me not understanding and complying with the STR regulations. Because in fact, I did comply with the regulation by talking to the tenant, resolving there was no issue, that the car was parked the same. That is my opinion when I say, and a fact if I may say so. I should be looking at you folks, shouldn't I? And I just am frustrated. And I have to say, and you folks have read it out here, that my conversation with Jessica from the SDR call department, I was extremely upset. I was not rude to her. I might have been rude to somebody else later on, but I was really upset. And I have to admit, I was crazy. And the reason I was crazy, as my friends over here know, this is the very same person that's called every time about a complaint. Somewhere in there it says that I have multiple calls. Yes, from the very same person. I will avoid using adjectives, but I could. And there's somebody on this panel that knows I am telling facts, but will avoid his name at this time, as you folks already know. So I'm appealing to you on the basis that, number one, I did talk to the tenant. I will not deny that I did not, in fact, inform the STR people. But my biggest single error, in my opinion, was that I should have called that night and left a voice message for Miss Johnson. which I did not regret that to the day, and we would not be here wasting our time, pardon the expression, on this issue because of my error in not informing the STR people, which as I said before, I subsequently did by text message to Ms. McCartney. But by then, she had already mailed the citation on the 17th, and I read it, and that's when I texted her saying, yes, I did talk to my, I'm repeating myself, forgive me. That's what happens when you're 85. You do that a lot. That's not an excuse, by the way. And I apologize once again for my actions with Jennifer from STR. I was very confused. And all I can do is, what's the expression I want to use? Throw myself down on the town council and rescind the citation because, in fact, I did follow the rules. A side comment, if I may, this is irrelevant, by the way. Ms. Romack, you conduct an excellent meeting. I have been president of various civil organizations, civic, I meant to say. In fact, at one time I was president of the Downtown Merchants Association, vice president of the Chamber of Commerce, and so on. And I have to say, and this is the 80s, by the way, this town has come amazingly a long way. I'm impressed with everything that happened here. I'm just disappointed that I'm here. Maybe I'll come back sometime and just be in the audience. Thank you. I'm open for questions, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. Before we get to questions, just want to confirm with staff, you guys finished your presentation already, correct? So we're on to questions. Okay. Thank you very much. So with that, we will start with questions. Councilmember Zabriskie, I will look to you first.
Mr. Bailey, you say you live 60 minutes away from the rental?
Yes, I do.
And you're telling us that you did call the tenant that night after speaking with the dispatcher, the
If I
code
may
enforcement.
say, he called me. He obviously had his phone turned off, I would say.
So you left a voicemail message for him with the phone turned off?
Yes, I did, and I left that out, sorry.
Okay. Do you remember how much later he called you?
I think Miss Hillary said it, but within minutes. It wasn't that long.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I did not state anything about a time when the tenant called
Thank
Mr.
you.
Bailey. Was not given any information to that effect.
I'm sure she's correct.
Okay. And when you called the town the next morning?
I think I texted Miss McCartney.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. No, that's a problem. I did not. And that was my grievous error. I did not. And I should have.
Okay.
Any comment on that over there? No. Sorry.
Yeah, let me go over here. Do we have any other testimony on where the vehicle was located? Whether it's permissibly parked or not?
We do not have any testimony. We do have we did listen to the audio of the complaint, and there was a complaint that there were two vehicles, one parked on Donner Pass Road, and then one, which I believe is the one Mr. Bailey is referring to, which was in the driveway on West Street Avenue, but may have been slightly outside of the driveway. I think that was, if I'm understanding correctly, I believe that's what he was referring to when he said he had looked at where the vehicle was parked and determined that it was not outside of the designated area. But there was a second vehicle that was also complained about on Donner Pass Road.
And what was the violation for the vehicle on Donner Pass Road?
Short-term rentals are only permitted to park vehicles within the driveway or within the garage. There's no street parking permitted.
Okay. Did you understand that, Mr. Bailey? No street
I'm a pretty
parking?
smart guy. Did I make a comment? This is the first time, plus reading here, that there was a car parked on Donner Pass Road. I've never heard that. My tenant never told me. And I know you cannot park on Donner Pass Road, primarily because the space in front of my house is only half paved, and that's a sin. You can't do it. But Miss Hillary, I'll be honest with you. It's the first time I heard about, except reading this, that there was a car parked on Donner Pass Road. I never discussed it with my tenant because I didn't know. If in fact there was one.
Yeah. Mr. Bailey, do you know how many vehicles were parked on in connection with that rental that night?
I don't know, but I have a limit of 4. I could look, take me a half hour to find it, because I tell my tenant in the letter before they ever come to my house, I ask them rather, how many cars do you have? And no one ever says 4. They always say 3 or sometimes 2, mainly 3.
Okay. And how many bedrooms does the house have?
Well, that's a question that is a little detailed. The main house has 3 real bedrooms, a den with a sleeper sofa, okay? The apartment down below, which is included, has 1 real bedroom, queen size, and a sleeper sofa again.
Okay, thank you. And when did the town hear back from Mr. Bailey? Was it the morning following the complaint?
Yeah, so the STR helpline, which is operated by a third party, received a call back at 9:27 p.m., so within the 30 minutes. The way that it works is our town staff are not on call during the weekends, so they then listen to any recordings that came in over the weekend, and they follow up on any incidences that were reported on Monday morning.
There was a call back at 9:27 p.m.
Correct.
Friday night.
I believe it was a Saturday. So the call was placed to Mr. Bailey at 9. Let me go back to the timeline here. 9:13, and he called back to the SDR helpline at 9:27.
Oh, okay. Was there another call after that, the following morning? Did you hear from Mr. Bailey after that evening call?
No.
No.
Okay.
And that was part of my, so to speak, apology that I should have called Miss Johnson, but I neglected to.
Okay. And I'm sorry, just tell me one more time, how do we know that one of the tenant cars was parked on Donner Pass Road?
We don't know, because it is the owner's responsibility to investigate a complaint and remediate the complaint. That's the way our system is set up, is we don't have staff on 24/7 who go out and investigate the complaint at the time it is made.
Okay. And so it was the complainant who said there was a car parked on Donner Pass Road?
Correct.
And did we do anything to confirm that the complainant was correct, or find out how she knew or he knew that a tenant's car was parked on Donner Pass Road?
We did not. Presumably by Monday morning, the car was no longer there.
Right.
And the citation was not for an illegally parked car. It was for the response to that complaint.
Okay. Can you go back to the slide showing the rule that was violated?
So I think Council Member Zabriskie, to help out here, while there was a response back from Mr. Bailey, the response didn't include that the violation was going to be addressed.
So it's 0.40A, is that the one I should be looking at? 5.02.04A.
040B, which is that the contact person shall cause the discontinuance of any violation within 60 minutes.
Okay. And so I'm trying to make sure I understand if there was, which violation are we talking about when we say within 60 minutes? The illegal parking?
Correct. So their job is to investigate whether there is a violation and remediate any such violation within 60 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
May I make a comment?
No, Mr. Bailey.
pardon me.
Yes, we have some additional questions and.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Okay, thank you. I have maybe just those were wonderful questions. Thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie, and I might just kind of layer on them, but same theme, if you will. So we have one complaint saying that there was a car parked illegally on the road. Mr. Bailey is here tonight saying that it wasn't parked illegally on the road. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? Thank you, sir. And we don't have any additional information to demonstrate which of those is correct, just the two sides, if you will. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think what I heard Mr. Bailey said is he was not aware of whether there was a car parked on Donner Pass Road.
Okay. And even, so if there was a car parked, let's just lay it out for a second and say there was a car parked on Donner Pass Road. Do we have any evidence to demonstrate that that was a tenant's car of Mr. Bailey's residence? No.
I can't talk, huh?
Well, I'm going to come to you. Give me a second.
Good.
I promise.
I'm honored.
Okay, so I'm seeing no. Okay. And then on the timeline, I just want a little bit of clarification. So, Mr. Bailey, I'm going to come to you here. So I know the recording from the STR hotline, I think, Mr. Bailey, you said something to the effect that you didn't want to call your tenants because you believed them to be asleep given the 9:30 hour in the evening. But I thought I heard you just say in your opening remarks that you did talk to them that evening?
No, they called me.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay. Unrelated to this issue.
Well, yes.
Okay.
Because I had left them, pardon if I may,
Yes,
a text
please.
message about the issue.
Okay. Okay. And our ordinance says that the owner responsible shall cause the discontinuance of any violation within those 60 minutes. But we don't actually know that there was a violation of parking. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Those are my only questions.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Pallavi.
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure I'm following Councilmember Zabrisky's line of questioning. So the violation specifically wasn't the parking.
Correct. The violation was failure to respond as required by the ordinance within 60 minutes.
But we're not necessarily sure, or we can't verify. Like, I just pulled up a street view of this property as an example, and I'm just trying to understand where the violation was occurring. Because to me, regardless if it's a short-term rental, like, I understand obviously that we have to be parking on pavement, but where was the supposed violation to begin with? And I guess the question is, if we have somebody who either agrees or disagrees with a violation, you know, according to his story, they talked about it. It didn't seem like a violation. They had already talked about that there wasn't a violation. So on the parking issue, where was the exact perceived violation? And do we have any proof that there was indeed a violation on parking?
The violation, according to the complaint, was parking both on Donner Pass Road and on West Street Avenue. We don't have
a picture.
We don't have any.
Didn't take a picture. Nothing.
No. Yeah, the reporting party did not provide a photo, or they did provide a photo.
But
my apologies.
That's okay. I'm going to speak to this a little bit.
Thanks,
so
Rosie.
a photo was provided, but it could be from any date and time. So that's why we come from a stance of investigation.
Right.
But so yes, a potential violation occurred, but at the same time, there was refusal to provide us remediation notes and or steps taken to remedy said potential violation. And so more so, I understand the violation at hand with parking, more so in regards to blatant refusal to provide us details of how he remedied the complaint, and that was received outside of the 60-minute window. So in the communication within that time frame, there was just refusal to remedy or provide us details of reaching out. That was provided after the fact.
Wow.
I guess my only other question is, we increased the fine to $1,000 and our last time we updated the STR fee schedule. When did we up it? It started at 500 when we adopted it. I do remember that clearly. I don't remember when we changed it to 1,000. Because this is the first violation this STR permit holder is being cited for. This is a first violation, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There was one other citation that was overturned on appeal. So this would be the first violation that would receive a fine.
And what was the appeal fee? Oh, sorry. My first question was, when did we up it to 1,000? How long ago?
Last fall, I believe.
Last fall. And then what was the appeal fee for both the first appeal to the tax administrator and now the second appeal? What have been the total
There's
amount
no
of appeal
appeal
fees?
fee to the tax administrator.
Okay.
The appeal fee to council is a deposit of $500.
A deposit of $500,
Yes, and it's
which
charged
is
at staff time. So that's the estimate of staff time.
got it. And is there, so let's say this appeal is, let's say the decision is upheld. Is there a refund of how much time has staff spent? What's the anticipated cost to the appellant at this point?
We haven't done a final calculation, but it will be approximately $500.
Got it. And if we should grant the appeal, the appellant is also entitled to their fees back, and there's no middle area where an appeal can be granted, but the appeal fee is retained?
You could do that.
We could do that.
You could reject the appeal, but reduce the amount of the fine.
We could.
Or the fee.
We could reduce the amount of the fee or okay. Thank you. Mr. Bailey, I guess really, you have a phone record here, and that's unfortunately part of the record at this point, and I think that's what the citation is. So are you clear that that is the actual violation that we are speaking about tonight?
Yes, but I did amend it after I got the citation in the mail and tacked on my door too, that I did in fact, we've went through this already, David. In fact, the tenant did call me and we did clarify the issue. We've gone over that and that's a fact.
Do you have a copy of the information that you provide your tenants electronically prior to their, habitating your home or renting your home? I guess that's the word I was trying to use.
Mr. Poley, I don't understand the question. Say it again.
What I'm wondering is if there was just a copy that you have here tonight that's printed out of the information that you provide your renters.
I never thought of bringing that. You'd love to read it.
Well, it would just help us understand, how much notice you are providing or not, because it's a lot of hearsay, unfortunately. So it's hard to make a judgment call. So that's good. You don't have it, and that's okay. That was my question. So I think that was my only question.
Is it proper to ask the three ladies a question?
That's
not yet.
Not yet. No, because We're asking the questions, and you had your 15 minutes.
Of fame.
So that was your time allotted.
I still have 15 minutes of my own.
No, you already utilized your time when you spoke after Hillary. That was your 15 minutes. So we appreciate that, and any further questions
Got it.
we have for you, you can answer. Councilmember Klofstad, any further questions?
No, I think we've... okay, one last thing. I believe I understand the answer, but so you texted the tenant, they called you, but did you request them to provide you any documentation or photos or any type of proof that the vehicle was not parked illegally? Okay. Do you understand that that's what the responsibility is on the owner to remedy this situation, and that could have helped you in that circumstance?
But in fact, it is in my phone, which I forwarded to the ladies over there, that my tenant did call me. We discussed the situation.
And calling and talking is great, but what we would have needed in order to help you in this situation is some sort of documentation of their own, i.e. a photo that shows the vehicle was not parked illegally. So that's what we're searching for here.
I can't talk. Can't talk. Can I talk?
You can answer that
my question.
Yes.
I saw no reason to. I knew, the tenant knew that there was no There's nothing wrong. Nothing was done. When can I ask them, the three ladies, a question? I'm sorry, dear.
Okay. The crux here being we don't have any substantiating evidence from you on
In
that
my
matter.
cell phone somewhere.
That
them.
only records the call. So thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds like what I heard from staff is, we have this record. We did not receive any additional information from Mr. Bailey showing that he spoke to the tenants.
We did not receive any information of a call. He did provide a screenshot of a text message to the tenant, which I do have here, so I can show that to you. I'll pull it up.
Yes, please.
Yes. It stated, I'm sorry to bother you calling at 9:30. We'll deal with the issue or non-issue in the AM, not early. It's about the cars. Subaru, sorry. And then goes on from there. So staff reviewed that and determined that that did not provide any evidence that the issue had been dealt with within 60 minutes. As it specifically stated, we'll deal with it in the morning.
Thank you. So that does show, Mr. Bailey, you did reach out to the tenants. So we understand that, but we're hearing that, yes, the language did not show that you were asking resolving of an issue or anything like that. But you did have a phone conversation, you said, with them, which again, we don't have a recording of, so we don't know what was the context of that call. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Did your phone conversation with the tenant occur after the text message back from him? Did he call you after the text message?
I'm not sure. I think, I'm sorry. Yes, after.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I do not have any further questions. Any additional questions from council? I'm seeing none. All right. And thank you, Mr. Bailey. You have had your time. We appreciate that. I will open it up to any additional public comments.
Excuse me. I've used up my 15 minutes.
Well, you used up your time allotted.
Can I ask one more question, please? Please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey.
May I just break the rules and ask it anyway?
You can.
And be subpoenaed to go to jail? I'm going to ask the question.
Nope, Mr. Bailey, we have a process, yes, so, yes. Well, we appreciate that, and I would put this out there for anyone who ever comes to us with an appeal and you get 15 minutes, ensure that you have all the information and utilize that time, because that was the time allotted.
Mayor Romack?
Yes.
May I ask one follow-up question?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey, is there any information that has not yet been presented to us this evening?
Who is this lovely person asking that question?
And if so,
Councilwoman Henderson here on
could
the
you
end.
provide it briefly,
yes.
please?
I'm going to ask the three ladies a question. Is it true that every complaint call I got was from the exact same neighbor? It's a yes or no question.
And Mr. Bailey, the questions do come to us.
Oh, I apologize.
And then we can choose to ask staff or not based on
to say it again?
the comments. So I will ask that question. It sounds like that there have been a few calls for this residence. Are they typically from the same person that we are aware of? And if you don't have that information readily available, that's okay too.
I don't think we have that information to confirm that they are from all one person.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank
you very much.
Huh?
No comments? So we will open it up to public comment. Anyone else in the room who would like to make a comment on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and now bring it back up to the dais for deliberation and determination. Council Member Zabriskie, we will start with you.
Can I thank the council?
We appreciate that. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah, there is a problem for me in that the obligation to contact the town within 60 minutes is within 60 minutes of the violation. And, with the precipitating violation, in this case, parked cars, a car that is allegedly parked on Donner Pass Road, and then one, I guess, that is allegedly extends beyond the driveway on West Reed Avenue. And I think we just have the bare assertion and then a photograph. It isn't as if the complainant provided the details to show that the car on Donner Pass Road was actually a car belonging to the tenants. And we've heard from staff the photograph could have been from any time, not necessarily the time period. Like, even staff sounds like it's not putting a whole lot of reliance on the photograph. So the problem for me is I don't know whether there was an underlying violation creating the duty to respond within 60 minutes. And I hate to say that someone can just call and complain, and then if the person doesn't call within 60 minutes, they're stuck with $1,000. I mean, I'd like to hear what the other council members feel. That's what I'm wrestling with right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you. Hillary, can you pull up the slide where you actually show the code that we have? You had a couple sentences on it on one of your slides. So I think we are all in agreement that a response was made within 30 minutes, correct? And I understand that the issue is not, the car parked on the street or not. It really is discontinuance of any violation. I think the challenge for me, quite frankly, similar to Councilmember Zabriskie, is it doesn't say discontinuance of any potential violation. It says any violation. And we don't have any evidence that a violation was made other than one word against another. I understand we have, the STR transcript, but it doesn't say discontinuance of any violation or potential violation. And I'm a little hung up there, quite frankly. So I have some concerns as well. Maybe that's to do with how our code is worded, but I think it is important that our STR operators are in compliance. We've worked really hard on our STR ordinance and our code related to this. I think we've worked to take a very fair and balanced approach. It has not been extreme on one end or the other. That was very intentional. We've used a lot of people's time in putting together our ordinance, the working committee that many members sat on, in addition to Vice Mayor Pallavi and myself, all of the work of staff. But I don't think this one is cut and dry of there wasn't a response within 60 minutes, because it says specifically they have to respond related to the discontinuance of any violation. Okay, I'm going to stop there.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pallavi?
I think I'm kind of with you both. I also go with the intent of all of this regulation and all of this time that we've spent to put all of this in place. And the intent is to remedy violations. And I mean, show me a violation and then I can uphold this. But I'm sort of shocked that there's no picture to document said violation. And Courtney, or Council Member Henderson, I didn't even think about how that was worded, but you're kind of completely right. It's the discontinuance of a violation. Well, we don't have verification that there was a violation. With that said, my questions were also very clear. Our staff time is valuable. Appeals are challenging, so I don't know. I was going that direction of granting the appeal, but retaining the appeal fee, or at least appeal deposit. But I don't really know. I think I very much am leaning with both of you on this one. It's super subjective. I don't like making subjective decisions up here. Like, it's not, it's weird. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Klivstad.
Well, I might be an outlier on this because to me, I think there was a clear violation, and that was in the transcript of the call where he refused to take action. And I think it is really important that we don't undermine that, because whether we have any proof of a violation or not, how is anybody calling in to say that there's noise going to prove that there's noise, without going out and, I don't even know what, and then, taking video, and then we don't know when that was taken. So I think the violation is really in the transcript. And we need our short-term rental owners and managers to take that response seriously and to recognize that the burden of proof is on them, that either there is no violation or that the violation has been corrected. And we don't have that here. And my concern is allowing approving the appeal would then open up the opportunity for pretty much so any other short-term rental owner or manager to come back and say, prove it. That's not our job here. That's not staff's job here. Staff's job is to address the complaints, to review the documentation, to review or listen to the recordings, and provide their own determination. So I'm very concerned that if we go down that path, that we are self-mitigating something that we were trying to create some enforcement boundaries around. So I believe that that the determination was accurate, that the violation was that Mr. Bailey clearly stated he was not going to respond within the 60-minute time frame, and that is the documentation that we have.
Can I address Councilmember Klivstad? I started out looking at this case the same way you are now, looking at the transcript, and for me, it's not so much who has the burden of proof. I don't know whether Mr. Bailey had the burden of proof or the one who complained, who made the initial allegation. For me, that's not as significant as Mr. Bailey is here this evening, not under oath, but I'm taking him, I guess I'm taking him at his word that as reflected in the transcript, he didn't think he was going to talk with the tenant again that night. The phone was off, and he thought he wasn't going to be able to do anything until the morning. But as it turns out, he received a text message from the tenant. The tenant did listen to the voicemail, and we have a text message showing that the tenant responded. And the text message itself didn't do enough to address it. He said he had 3 Subarus or something. That didn't answer the question. And that they would resolve it
in the morning, which is not the 60-minute time frame.
Right. But then they talked. Then the tenant called and said, no cars, I don't have any cars on Donner Pass Road, and the car in the driveway is within the line. I'm taking that presentation and I'm comparing it with the complainant, which says there's a car parked on Donner Pass Road, it belongs to the tenant, and there's a car in the driveway, it's sticking out. But there's no detail. I don't get the indicia of reliability that I would with detailed facts supporting the assertion.
I agree with you, Councilmember Zabriskie, that's going to the violation of the parking. And to me, I'm sticking with this was a violation of the non-responsiveness in 60 minutes. That's where the violation rests, not in the parking.
Yeah, but except the ordinance says within 60 minutes of the violation, not 60 minutes to respond to a query about someone's claiming a violation. And I see a distinction. I see you have to have a violation. So I'm sitting here, in order to get to the 60 minutes, I have to decide whether there was a violation first. And I have contrary assertions, one supported by factual detail, the other not. I'm going with the one factual detail.
And that's completely your purview. And I agree with Councilmember Henderson that perhaps we could add some language there. And the language I would add would be reported violation. But I think that is the intent of that code section, is it's a reported violation. And it should be addressed within 60 days.
Yeah, just to finish, the other thing is I'm putting myself in the shoes of Bailey and the tenant. The tenant could have gone out and fixed it if that was an issue. He could as well have said to Bailey, oh, I moved the car on Donner Pass Road. It's not on Donner Pass. I put it up here. I squeezed it into the driveway, or, oh, yeah, the car was sticking out. I pulled it in. He could have done that as easily. The fact, Mr. Bailey's telling us the guy called him back to address it. So Mr. Bailey was lucky in that sense. And anyway, that's where I'm sitting. Beyond that, I hear what Council Member Pallavi said. I don't say cutting the baby in half. I say,
well, and I'd like to clarify what I was trying to say to Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah.
I think that you can deny the appeal or reduce the fine. If you grant the appeal, there's no basis for a fine or a fee, really. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was trying to articulate, and perhaps I failed. But that I think is the option. If you grant the appeal, I don't think we're collecting anything. But if you deny it, you could reduce it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I have a question for staff again, and that's, is there the opportunity for property owners or the contact person to call back to the STR hotline to confirm I have reduced this, I've dealt with the violation? Or is it just the initial call, they say, I will deal with it within 60 minutes? I guess I'm just curious how that works.
And that was the STR operator, correct?
Yes, STR operator owner,
yeah, so
yes.
our hotline will make a call providing the parameters of the complaint and notifying them, and the short-term rental operator can call back the hotline, providing resolution. But also we provide a multitude of means. They can email, they could call our short-term rental division direct line, they can text our work cell, provide remediation steps. So there's a multitude of ways in which they could.
And do they have to do that within 60 minutes? Or no, they just have to, the next morning, could they text and say, I called them at 9:30 and they, dealt with the violation?
Internal procedure is that the hope that they would respond to us with the remediation steps within the 60 minutes or take proactive action.
But I think to more directly answer the question, the ordinance does not specifically say you're required to call back within 60 minutes to tell us the steps that were taken.
Okay. That might be something for us to think about as well.
That is a cleanup amendment that we have considered and we are planning to bring back in November.
Okay. Because then, yes, there would be specific expectations. So we would have documentation, at least, of how they dealt with the issue. Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. And I think Councilmember Klövstad, your comments, that's where I was coming from too, is we have no document. All we have is that the SCR operator said, I'm not going to do what the ordinance says. Yes. And so that to me still seems like it is a violation. I agree we need some cleanup items to make it clearer. And I really support that they would have to get back in 60 minutes because, again, then there could be documentation that they dealt with it. But if it was a sound issue that you brought up and it was still happening, then, the complainant could report again. And, so just more documentation would make sense.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Are you in the middle of your train of thought?
Go for it.
Is there a certain type of complaint that triggers a police or other type of emergency response, for example, excessive noise or some other type of response? And can you elaborate what those are?
Yes, so specifically to what you said, noise complaints. So our hotline does have a separate track for that specific complaint type, where when a noise complaint's received, the short-term rental operator is notified or called of the details of the complaint. And then our 24/7 hotline calls non-emergency dispatch so we can come from a stance of investigation. So that's our after hours.
And then everything else in our short-term ordinance, if I remember correctly, requires some sort of either certification, so whether it's fire, number of bedrooms, I'm spacing on almost everything else, but we have basically, is this the only subjective type of complaint that is possible within our ordinance?
We do have occupancy limits, so that could
Occupancy.
be something else where we
Yeah,
receive a complaint.
subjective,
Yeah.
right, okay. And those would be the two, the occupancy limits and the parking.
Can I pose another option?
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is to allow staff to gather evidence corroborating the assertion. Could be as simple as having the complainant appear and give us the details or provide them to staff, continue the hearing in order to take that additional evidence. And then just related to the noise, I mean, you can record noise or you can show up here and describe it in detail. Was it the Rolling Stones playing their latest new album? That'd provide a little more detail. You could do things like that. So there are solutions, there are distinctions to be made with a noise situation.
And really super fast, are we able, so again, just as another option, and I'm just asking questions, if we were to grant the appeal, can we put in a stipulation on that appeal, on that granting? So basically, if we were to grant an appeal and there's another complaint on said property, that upon the subsequent complaint and potential violation, there is no opportunity to appeal.
No, can't
we
do
cannot
that.
do that. Okay,
No,
thank
you have to consider every appeal on its own
On its
merits.
own. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm going back because Councilmember Klövstad, I definitely hear you, and I was just kind of going through all of the detail of the transcript again, and I know that. Sorry, let me just find it. So I know that that Jessica says that the guests, you're not able to reach out to them at this time, and Mr. Bailey says, yes, Jessica, that's true. That's true. But as we go a couple of lines down later, Jessica says, but since you've called in regard to the complaint and said that you can't reach out to the guest at the property because you've said they've gone to sleep, they've turned off their phones, but it says leave their voicemail. Is that supposed to be like left them a voicemail, or we just can't tell because of the quality of the transcript? Because if in fact this transcript is saying he did leave a voicemail, I guess I'm trying to clarify that within the transcript itself, like the evidence that we have in front of us. Does that make sense? Or this is just the quality of the transcript and we just.
Quality of the transcript.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So, Councilmember Zabriskie, were you advocating that this could be continued and additional information is presented, or you are presenting that as an option?
I'm presenting that it is as an option. That would be something I'd leave to my fellow council members. Welcome to any input from staff about their being interested in gathering the additional information.
Councilmember Henderson?
I would say I don't know if it's going to get us much else, honestly. I think if there were pictures or other things that actually documented this case, they would have been submitted. So I would be hesitant to continue it when, staff's going to have to put more time into it. And I just don't know that it will necessarily yield that much to inform the decision.
Yeah, if I can just offer, as Hillary mentioned, you're going to be hearing some updates to the STR ordinance in a couple weeks, maybe in a month, depending on agenda availability. That these are conversations that will be great to feed into that in terms of how we clarify and going forward. I don't think there's much more we can get for this case at this point. So we're not going to be able to go back and timestamp a picture or get any other evidence to help support one way or another without an additional significant amount of staff time.
So I'm hearing 3 council members in support of granting the appeal. Is that correct? I think I've heard from the 3 of you, because of the way things are presented now and not understanding if there was truly a violation.
I think for me, I do, what Councilmember Klövstad said, I think is also very true. And it's what we have in the transcript, right? Like that I'm not going to necessarily reach out this evening and a focus on that being the violation. I don't particularly like it either way for all of the reasons that we've just deliberated about over the past however long it's been at this point. So potentially maybe there is a compromise to be struck similar to Vice Mayor Pahlavi's earlier suggestion where, if we do uphold the notice of determination, but if it is at our discretion to say we're going to collect the $500 fee, and I know that's not a perfect solution, but I'm trying to find some compromise here with imperfect information.
Is there also an impact on this violation because don't we have a 3 strikes you're out policy?
That's correct. We do have a 3 strikes within a year or 3 violations within a year, then your registration certificate is rescinded. We also have a requirement that if you receive 1 citation for the next year, you are required to respond in person within 60 minutes to make sure that a complaint has been remediated versus responding virtually.
Very important information. Thank you.
So I've heard one option. I do recognize that there is some not full clarity in our ordinance, to your point, Councilmember Henderson, of potential violation, clarifying 60 minutes response, documentation, something to that effect. So while I will say I was definitely, it seems like, there was not a response in the 60 minutes, which is in our ordinance. And yet maybe we lacked some clarity at this time to help us ensure we have all the facts. So would it make sense to grant the appeal this time with the understanding we are making changes so that way if things like this come to us again, we have better information to also ensure, to your point, Councilmember Klövstad, that property owners just, it's not just all hearsay and we always grant appeals. That's another potential option, knowing we're bringing back changes. Councilmember Klövstad, would you feel comfortable at all with that, or you feel to leave staff's determination?
I really appreciate everybody's attempt to try to find some common ground here and some compromise, but no, unfortunately, that would not, because I think we are going to continue to find these gray areas and loopholes, and I think granting an appeal in this case is just going to fortify people's intention to find those. And I think we've learned from this, and we're going to improve. We have a continual improvements commitment on this council. But I do think that the ordinance is clear that there needs to be correction within 60 minutes, and that the documentation that we have shows that that was not accommodated. That was rejected. So it's clear to me in this case, but I appreciate all of those attempts, and I get it. I see the concern and the discomfort with this, but I also feel like this is our job. It's to uphold the laws and the ordinances and codes that we approve up here, and this is one of those circumstances. It's not fun, but this is our job.
And it's equally clear to me that the appeal should be granted because the evidence that's been presented to us demonstrates that there was no violation. All we have is a bare assertion, a transcript that's incomplete because it does not address the text message and the conversation the appellant had with the tenant. It doesn't show up anywhere in the staff report, and I would have expected it to be there, or that staff, in realizing there was appeal and the appellant was going to be here giving its side of the story, did not gather the facts either by talking with the complainant or asking the complainant to appear here in order to present evidence that would outweigh what the appellant presented. I really feel I'm seeing only one set of facts, and they're the facts presented by the appellant. And that's in regard to whether there was an underlying violation. And so that part's clear to me. And I was initially coming in here ready to deny the appeal because I had only the staff report. And I am concerned about cars being parked along Donner Pass Road just because of the hazard they present for pedestrians and bike riders and other vehicles.
Vice Mayor Pallavi?
I concur with attorney slash vice mayor slash council member Zabriskie on this one. I find it very difficult to uphold this, understanding also what the next steps bring and having a tough time. I just want a picture. Honestly, if there was a picture of the violation that then triggers all the next steps, that I think that's what you're saying, right? I agree with you.
Staff said there was a picture. We just don't know.
Well, we don't know if it's accurate. It's not verifiable. I mean, we all have phones, right?
You want a date stamp.
Yeah, I want a date stamp picture, like from your phone. I mean, that's not asking too much, in my opinion. And that to me is that's it. That's the only piece. Like if we had that and we could say, yes, there's a violation. Yes, I agree with you. That then triggers all these next steps, but subjective violations make it really hard to say, let me drive up there. Okay, now you need to move your, so I'm going to deal with this. Move your car. Where? How far? Where's the line? So what happens if he did reply and then he moved it, but yet there was still a complaint a half an hour later saying, I moved the car, and I'm also going to the fact that they discussed the car and it seemed to be dealt with. So I don't know, but Councilmember Zabriskie kind of summed it up for me, I think. And so that's unfortunately where I'm at. And I don't believe this was the intent of what we were trying to do. And I think that's also a bit troubling to me, but I agree with you. You made really strong points. We are up here to enforce exactly what we put in place. I'm just not sure that the order of how this went down brings me to that conclusion that there was a violation of the third thing that happened, basically, of the citation and the callback and the response. So,
Councilmember Henderson, your fingers were near the mic, but if you weren't making a comment, you're welcome to.
Well, I guess, so you can tell I'm obviously wrestling with this, right? Because I'm going back and forth, I think, as all of us, or some of us at least are. So what if it was based on, for example, occupancy, and there was like one more person than is legally allowed in that STR, but they're not all together at the same time. So how does someone who makes a complaint get a picture of that? And why is the burden on the person making the complaint when operating an STR? It's a privilege. It is not a right. So I do think that our intent was that the burden should be on the operator. And that's kind of what gets me back, to where Councilmember Klostad's remarks were as well. And perhaps that is part of our future iteration of we really need to clarify the intent, but I don't think the intent is on the person making the complaint. We had all of these conversations as we developed these ordinances about, we still want to have neighborhoods and we don't want it to feel like, there are hotels operating in them, and we want people to feel like if something is happening that they can make a complaint and they're empowered to do that and they don't think that they're going to be dismissed.
Yes, appreciate that. This is a really tricky one. And, we don't have staff working 24/7 to be able to go out and check these violations. And you raise a very good point too, Councilmember Henderson, of, an occupancy limit. How's anyone going to get a picture of that? I thought I saw 12 people go in there and it's only supposed to be 10. So who has the burden of proof? All of those questions. I think ultimately this brings me back to my initial thought going around with Councilmember Klostad. The facts that we have show that there was a statement of, I am not going to follow the rule. I am not going to do what is stated. And so I'm going to go back with that. Again, I offered up different ideas, just again, thinking through everything. But I think with all of this, ultimately we have to go with what's in our rules, and therefore I would go with staff's direction to not grant the appeal.
Are you making a motion?
Technically, the mayor doesn't make a motion. All right.
100%. Or I will.
Go for it, Councilmember Klostad.
I move that we, uphold the notice of determination and judgment in an amount of $1,000.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
No.
That passes 3-2. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. And we have a few changes, I think, to make and understanding of next steps in this process. All right, with that, I know we're close to 8 o'clock, but it's my understanding our next item is fairly quick. And I know Laura's been sitting there, so we're going to just plow right ahead. Got an iron bladder. I'm sorry, Councilmember Klostad. Historic Preservation Advisory Commission, HPAC appointments. And Laura, I would say we give you approval to be as brief as you need to be.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to talk about appointments to the
Thank you.
Historic Preservation Advisory Commission. I'm going to skip this slide. This is just background, which I think you guys are all familiar with what this commission is. We have 5 current members. The 3 in black here are the ones whose terms are ending on November 1st. For those 3 positions, we received 3 applications. 2 are from current members. Sean Mortier is from the Historical Society. Bill Kinney is a lay member. And we have a new application from Kelly Gove to take Vanjie Whiteman's position as a professional commissioner because Vanjie was not able to reapply this time around. So our recommendation is to reappoint Sean for the Truckee Donner Historical Society member position, to reappoint Bill Kinney as the lay member position, and then to appoint Kelly for the professional member. She is a licensed architect. She has a background and interest in historic preservation work. So our recommendation is to reappoint Sean Mortier and Bill Kinney and appoint Kelly Gove to HPAC for 4-year terms, which would expire in 2027. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Are there any questions from council members? No? Yeah, go for it.
Do we have any conflict of interest issues by having a planning commissioner and a HPAC commissioner? HPAC only makes recommendations. They don't approve things. I understand that. Just double checking.
It's not a legal issue. It's only a perception issue, perhaps. But because HPAC doesn't actually make any decisions, there's no real conflict there.
Thank you for stating that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will open up public comment. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Bring it back up. Any thoughts or motions people would like to make?
I'm just very appreciative of all 3 of these individuals for stepping up for this position, and the other 2 members that are currently serving. I think the work that they do is incredibly valuable, and I want to thank them and recognize them for that.
I agree with Councilmember Klostad.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I thought you were going to do it as part of that. Yeah. So moved and agreed with Councilmember Klostad.
And second.
All right. That was a motion by Pallavi.
Second.
By Klostad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right, we will do our council reports and then take a break after that, right before our closed session. Vice Mayor Pallavi, anything to report, council member reports?
Probably, but just I think mostly visit Truckee Tahoe board meeting, preparing for a presentation at our next council meeting. You'll hear from Colleen and get to view our very attractive annual report and action plan, strategic plan. Unfortunately, we lost. There's going to be a change of ownership at one of our local lodging properties, and so we are losing another board member, which is unfortunate. So apparently, my tenure as longest serving board member on that board will be continuing, yeah, we discussed our special event policy, so kind of appropriate for what we heard tonight in terms of what Visit Truckee will be supporting, and just sort of refined our strategic plan to get the final touches on that, which you'll hear all about next meeting. Other than that, I don't believe I have anything else to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klostad.
CTA Governing Partners meeting was this week. So again, thank you, Jen, for mentioning the November 2nd community meeting. I really would love all of the council members to be there. We will be doing awards for the pilot project pitches that we did. So we don't know, we haven't announced, or they haven't announced who the judges picked, but that will be announced on Thursday, November 2nd. And at 6 to 8 p.m. And the other thing I'll add is we have catering by Mountain Lotus Provisions, so nibbles and mocktails just to entice you there. I also had a Civic Well board meeting, and we are deep in budget work right now with Civic Well. But thank you, everybody who responded to the survey. We're also analyzing that information to hopefully craft a really fantastic conference and use somebody this year. I think many of us attended the Donner Lake Fish Art unveiling. That was very exciting. A lot of really positive social media coverage from a bunch of different organizations on that. And then while I wasn't able to attend Good Morning Truckee, I did watch the recording, and just so proud of our DEI work. I think Councilmember Henderson really elevated that, but it's pretty extraordinary how far that's come in such a short amount of time. And it was also, I think, really great to have the support of the Chamber of Commerce in talking about that issue and elevating it in our community as well. So,
thank you very much. Councilmember Henderson.
Just a few for me this time. So last week was TDMA's bingo event and fundraiser, which was really, really fun. And also just a great turnout. So congrats to them. Attended the Donner Lake art unveiling. That was amazing. And also participated in the Truckee Elementary Walkathon. Just, try to interact with some of our community youth. And it was really cool. I also heard that I think he's a 4th or 5th grader. He did like 12 miles. Just ran the entire time. It was really amazing how many laps these kids did, and just all of the support from the community, the parents, the teachers, all the school administrators.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I attended a Firewise community meeting of the Prosser Lakeview and Prosser Woods, and along with Courtney attended the fish art installation. Met with Heidi Meyerhofer, who spoke earlier today in a presentation about the work and the legislation that our state senator's working on. Met with Dave West and Kira Ross earlier today, and then participated in a discussion with Charles Heath and others on the polling for a sales tax increase.
Thank you very much. I attended that meeting today on the sales tax increase, was at the Donner Lake Art. Good Morning Truckee with Councilmember Zabriskie, where we saw Erica's great presentation. Also heard from Adventure Risk Challenge ARC of a lot of the amazing work they're doing in the DEI realm. Attended the Climate Transformation Alliance quarterly meeting on behalf of Councilmember Henderson, because she was unable to attend, and I got to witness Councilmember Klovstad's pitch group, which was fantastic, so good job. And it was just great to see the CTA in action and see what goes into that. Participated in the last Truckee Litter Corps that was hosted at 101.5 Truckee Tower Radio, so got to pick up trash along with some former coworkers, which was fun. Attended the mayor-manager breakfast last week, which was always a good time, and just heard again from our city and county partners. Participated in Truckee River Day. I planted trees in Tahoe Donner, and I was paired up with Tony Lashbrook. So the two of us had a fun morning, or afternoon, I guess, planting trees together and getting stung by a few bees, unfortunately. But we survived. And 2-year-old Jeffrey I don't know. Oh, the bees? I don't know. I could show you the marks on my legs. And attended Big Truck Day on Saturday. That was phenomenal. Thank you to Public Works, police, all the other staff members that were out there. We were there the entire day because I have a 3-year-old who loves trucks. So we had to sit on all the buses and everything. So it was fantastic. But I think the highlight of my last 2 weeks, special thanks to Chief Renfro, his department. I did a ride-along with the police department, and it was just phenomenal. I got to go out in the afternoon and kind of see the commute time, and then stay into the evening and nighttime. Also was part of their briefing at Shift Change on drug recognition and, what tactics they use to see people who are driving under the influence. But just kudos, Chief Renfro, to you, your team. All of our officers are incredible. And it was just such a great opportunity to see them in action and see how much they care about our community. So thank you to you and your staff. And I think everybody has done a ride along. If you haven't, you should do another one, because it was super fun. So with that, we will adjourn our open session and move into our closed session conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation.